Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs, and welcome to the end of all things, at least as far as Vinland Saga is concerned. This is Ragnarok, and well, okay, it did happen before the turn of the year. We've been delayed a little bit, the apocalypse got put back a couple of days. We apologize for that profusely. But of course, this is Warui Deshou. I'm Shadon. Joining me across the pond, close by, is the Soul Doctor, Viking comrade in arms though he is. Still not wearing a silly hat, though. Needs to sort that.
No silly hat. Listen.
Where's your silly hat, my man?
We just watched episodes 23, and I just watched episodes 23 and 24. I don't think I could pull off the silly hat. You know what I mean?
Well, to be fair, like when we did Banana Fished the previous year, end of 2018, do you recall how I was wearing a silly Christmas hat for that? And I was like, well, don't I feel like a moron given how depressing and terrible the ending was? So I'm glad I got my opportunity to have the silly Viking hat, which now rests over on my plinth behind me, out of the way when, it was still, things might turn out okay for fourth. Oh no. It didn't end well for him at all. What a surprise. Oh, shit.
I mean,
but yes.
I am, don't get me wrong, right? I am jubilant. Jubilant's not. I'm enthusiastic to talk about this episode because I think these episodes rather, were like an incredible achievement, actually. Mm-hmm. Like, I love the shit out of them, but like, for these characters, oh boy, it was a shot, man. A shot through the heart with a giant fat dagger.
I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, we finally learned the one lesson that Vinland Saga was trying to teach us all along, which is that if you want to get anywhere in life, you got to Q cut. I mean,
you bastard.
Canute, fuck spoilers, like it's been out for a couple of weeks now. But Canute, he had his meal ticket in hand and he was going to get served after the fourth in. But he decided, rules for tools, I'm going to, get in there first, have my revenge. Mm-hmm. Or was it revenge? We'll discuss that later, of course. But yes, we're going to cover episodes 23, which is a miscalculation, episodes 24 of Vinland Saga, 24 being named End of the Prologue. And
what a name.
Like that's a name that pivots on a knife edge, because either it's incredibly ballsy like it is here, or it's the kind of thing that your creative writing teacher would slap you around the wrist for. Like, end of the prologue and you've written 50,000 words, or however many it is. Come on now, come on. But all joking aside, we will indeed be covering the plot as we normally do, but we're going to abridge it a little bit. We've got talking points aplenty to cover later. And then we'll, of course, sum up our feelings on the series overall, much as we've been wanting to do in the past when we've got to the end of something we've covered on Stream of Thought. I would just like to thank everyone for their patience in allowing us to get around to these episodes now. Yeah. Ideally, we would have covered them immediately after they aired, as we did with Banana Fish, funnily enough. But I think that was just a product of bad timing and coincidence, because of the fact that I think the show got delayed twice. One time due to sports, the arch enemy of all nerds everywhere, like
That's
us.
Right. I forgot about that.
Curse you, sports. Honestly, sports ruin everything.
I love sport. We don't need to slag off sport too much.
No, I do. You do you on the other side of the ocean where you're safe and comfortable. Honestly,
sport is good. I don't know how comfortable I am or safe. Spoilers.
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, this entire show is about admittedly traveling to America in the end. So, I'm coming for you, Doc. This is my Vinland Saga, bitch. Anyway, so we're obviously going to do a little bit of housekeeping first, and that is firstly to cover the polls that we did from last time, which I'm sure none of you remember. I certainly don't, but Doc does indeed have them handy here, and we'll be going through them presently.
I do. All right, so here we go with the polls for Vinland Saga episode 22. Poll number 1. Have you heard of the marshmallow? I forgot about these. It has been a long time. And incidentally, I'm on poll duty again today, so perhaps more zaniness will occur.
Of course it will.
Have you heard of the Marshmallow Times anime? The fuck is that? Winning in a landslide of 87%.
It's winning right now for me, because even though I'm sure you and I talked about it at the time, I still can't remember. And I don't know if that's necessarily the amount of alcohol I've consumed over the Christmas period to now that's done that. Or if it's just more the case that, there are some things man is not meant to know.
The marshmallow times being one of the
key
why
ones.
Not?
Why not both? Why not both?
Every marshmallow time, man is not fit to know. 4.2% claim to have seen every episode. You are lying. You are lying. I'm just saying it now. Poll number 2. Does Askeladd actually want Thorfinn to kill him? Courtesy of Theowulf. This one was a little bit more of an actual race. 52% say no. Poll 3. Does Olaf look like an aged up Maximilian dude? I forgot about it. 75% responded with the 3 exclamation marks indicative of the reaction. Like, holy shit, he does. And 25% say maybe. And
maybe we need to revisit this poll in 20 years or so. just
Does he look like him now? It will be an interesting look back. Poll 4. Does this episode have the best action scenes in the show? 66% say yup, so it's a 2/3 to 1/3 split here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that they were topped by anything this episode action-wise? I don't, but I don't think that's the point of these episodes.
No, I wouldn't even argue that Vinland Saga itself is necessarily an action show.
Sure.
Any action in this show is really to serve either the plot or the points that the I almost said Masaki Uwase them. I was like, I know he's good, but he's not so good that he's also done this show. I actually meant Makoto Yukimura. The points that Makoto Yukimura is trying to get across in his material. Calling this an action show, no, I wouldn't say so. That's like saying that RoboCop is an action film. Yes, but you're missing the point by quite a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, RoboCop is a comedy. We all know this.
Oh, it is, absolutely. It's hilarious watching the rich be incompetent dickheads.
Mm-hmm. Poll 5. Mm-hmm. When Askeladd dies, I was waiting for that sound to finish on your end. When Askeladd dies, say he gets Thorfinn a card. What would it say? We have a tie, ladies and gentlemen. We have a tie and envies. There were 4 choices. I will read them from the one that got the least amount of votes upwards. So, I'm sorry. Got 3% of the vote, as it should. Fuck you. Got 19% of the vote.
A Hallmark classic.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Yep. A Walgreens bestseller. And coming in at 38.5% apiece are a gift card to Brains R Us, which is just so stupid it makes me laugh. And welcome to your new job with your misspelled.
He didn't have time to write it. He was dying. He daubed it in his own blood.
It's true. Oh, I have so much to say about that scene, that final scene. But so those are the polls for episode 22. Look out for new polls at Warui Deshou on Twitter.
All right, then. So now I've got a bit of a task out of myself here, folks, and I'm going to try and sum up part of episodes 23 and 24. I would just ask for your patience on this, just because I did watch episode 23 last night and 24 today again, just to try and refresh my memory. But you know what, like, this brain is in here, like, you know, it's a sieve. Everything just gets spilled out. Oh?
It is not summary time just yet, my friend.
Ah, damn it.
No, you want to... Anime is made by people, and you want to forget that, okay?
Bullshit.
You want to forget
bullshit. Anime is made by people. God's sake, next thing you know, you'll be telling me that animators deserve fair and equitable pay and, you know, workers' rights. What is that rubbish and nonsense?
I mean,
Mike?
I know, it's a bit
Get
daft,
out.
but I've found religion on it. What can I say? So. Creatives. We don't really have to spend too much time on this, quite honestly, because 4 of the 5 principles involved here we have covered before. The dynamic writing duo, strong until the end, Hiroshi Seko and Kenta Ihara. They remain co-occupants of the writer's chair and have been since episode 5. So for 19 straight episodes. The first 4 Hiroshi san wrote himself, and then Kenta-kun came in for the assist. Good on you. And
if you ever meet him in real life, I want you to refer to him by that.
Kenta-kun, I will. Yep, definitely. So episode directors, there were a pair for episode 24. There was a single one for episode 23. Yosuke Yamamoto, we have talked about before because they have directed previous episodes of the show. Episode 17, they were one of the 3 episode directors for 17, as well as 13, 6, and 3. Shuhei Yabuta was a co-director on episode 4, and Yabuta-san has directed before. Episode 1, in fact. So they directed the beginning and the end. Pretty cool. And the other occupant of the director's chair, Tadahito Matsubayashi. And Matsubayashi-san has a really extensive resume. He's been a key animator, an episode director, storyboarder, for all sorts of things. Been the head director for a couple of things. I don't know what your opinion is on Magical Girl Site, or where was it? There's something else. Oh, the Tokyo Ghoul Pinto OAV, directed by this person. But look, they've been involved with some interesting.
The Pinto. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that like a make of car or something?
It was. You're correct.
Wasn't that the car that also exploded every time someone rammed into the back of it? I remember this from Top Secret, or a review of Top Secret I watched on Red Letter Media. So does that mean that anime also similarly was liable to explode if you put it in the DVD player the wrong way? I don't know. I've never heard of any of these things. Like, I'm sorry, folks. Like, I'm still the perpetual like anime troll living under the bridge who knows nothing and is not in contact with the wider world. I'm not very educated on these masses.
Once you play the DVD on 1.5 speed, you can't stop it or it will explode.
Man, if you play like the DVD of like Elfen Lied on 1.5 speed, you start hearing like, verses from the Satanic Bible.
That's also true. That's a fact. What I just said was a made-up joke. What you said, 100% true.
We've got to get some actual facts in this podcast. I mean, Snopes might come for us someday. I want to be ready for
that. Matsubayashi, though, again, been key animator for a lot of good stuff. Aria, Another, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, Gurren Lagann, episode 14, Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, both seasons, several episodes in there. JoJo's Diamond is Unbreakable, he directed episode 15. Kanagi, Crazy Shrine Maidens. I did not like that show. I mean, I didn't hate it, but it was aggressively fine. Oh, shit. Also, Sonic X. Sonic X, which we talked
wait, the thing that we jokes about has come back around.
Yep.
Why does this keep happening?
Macross fucking Delta, my friend.
Okay, we brought it back up now.
Did you like episode 7? Because Matsubayashi both storyboarded and directed it.
Was that the one where they ended up blowing a cat-shaped hole through the wall with C4?
I hope so. I hope that's the cat episode. The cat pun episode.
I wish I was grading all of those on an Excel spreadsheet and making a bar a line chart of it of good, bad, don't know. Because that was all over the map there.
I am Googling list of Macross Delta episodes. Episode 7. Behind enemy lines, while Kure and Delta Flight perform a covert mission to planet Voldor to learn more about the enemy's plans. On location, they explore ancient ruins built by the protoculture, where they discover the truth. It is the fucking meow meow nyan nyan episode, and it is
apologies.
Yeah, and then to the side, she's cocking the gun.
It's just got one bullet in it for herself because she can't deal with this shit anymore.
Oh, God. Mirage, our sacred mother.
Good old Delta. That's quite the eclectic collection of shows that have been created. So
Spirited Away,
Well, okay, now it's getting even more.
He was a cleanup animation. Admittedly not a one who's driving the creative bus, but worked on Spirited Away.
That's still something.
You got your Spirited Away, and you also got your Servant X Service, your Sonic X. It's gotta. Dude gotta eat. So there you go. Prolific.
That's certainly one.
Tadahito Matsubayashi. But that's it. That is the Vinland episode. Writers and directors covered in non-exhaustive detail. That we've done every one of them.
Fair enough then. All right then. So let's see this little saga out, or at least this first chapter of the saga, shall we say? So let's start with episode 23, Miscalculation. Again, I'm going to abridge this, and I would just appreciate everyone's patience if I miss details out, because I'm just conscious of running over, going too long on time and such. Anyway, I'm going to get to that, Feo. Don't worry. That was locked in my, brain space here to talk about that. I remember which person it was as well. But anyway, episode 23 opens, and it's King Swain's house party. Everyone's gathering up to go get drunk and have a merry old time. This, of course, following the events of the previous episode, in which, Canute was assassinated, or attempted to be assassinated, quote unquote, but it was all, of course, just a setup. This is also including, of course, following, just for context for later, Thorfinn having attempted for what must have been the 100th time to try and kill Askeladd in a duel and resultantly failed. I mean, I hope Thorfinn kept a running tally on a wall somewhere. That shit scratched the fuck by now. But anyway, so yeah, everyone's gathering up. And we have various soldiers and lords discussing this beforehand, one of which is Makoto Yukimura, as mentioned by Fairwolf in chat, who's providing his, a little cameo here, voicing one of the guys talking about the pair. I'll not belabor the point too much more than that, because I want to keep going through the story.
Awesome,
by the way, big shout-outs to Makoto Yukimura in general. He's probably one of my new favorite, creators in general, just because he seems like such a chill dude. And he also has the right idea about him. I would definitely go drinking with him. I would definitely, go out to Japan, catch up with him, have a couple of drinks, and then, steal all of his, materials and hidden stuff just for fun of it, Which is why this will never happen. So that's now 4 points. That's 4 pints I now owe to creators of Japanese anime that I respect. There's probably even more than that. My bar tab is going to be ridiculous if I ever go to that country. Anyway. So yeah, they're all discussing the assassination attempts that obviously didn't happen, mentioning Askeladd, for example, as well. There's all sorts of things going on. But then the entourage appears, which is Canute, King Swain, Thorkell, Floki, Askeladd. Small thing, but I want to know it here. The music goes dead. It is absolute stone silence as these five walk in. And all you hear is just the rhythmic footsteps in, booming out across the stage. And there's nothing else. No one says a word. The tension, you can feel it in this moment. No one who's there, of course. I mean, this is one of those examples of disconnect that I think is great, actually, because we know what's going on behind the scenes, but none of them know that all this complicated maneuvering has been going on behind the scenes. So we know that shit could potentially go down, and spoilers, it does. But yeah, so they're all walking in. Thorfinn, at this point, by the way, still wounded, still battered from his duel of Askeladd. He's wandering the town in a daze, thinks he spots Askeladd, mocking him, goes after him. It isn't him. I mean, this is his obsession, taken to the extreme here, where he's starting to see Askeladd everywhere, basically.
This hurt my heart, man. This really hurt me. This is watching a person that has given up. It's pathetic and deeply sad.
Pathetic is the word I'd use, but I mean, when I say that, I don't mean that in a derogatory term. I mean that with deepest sympathy for him.
Feel pathos. It is pathetic. Yeah. Yes.
If you were laughing at Thorfinn prior to this, you're just gonna go ha 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 ha. Oh.
I mean, he's basically just broken. We called on YouTube episode 22 "The Breaking of a Boy," and his brain has been broken at this point until it's jolted to recovery a little later on by the defibrillator that is, your and my favorite pipe smoker.
Yes, Mr. Edibles himself.
As well as a blue sky, but we'll get to that.
Indeed. So while this is happening, Thorfinn encounters a group of free men who he bumps into, and they decide, you know what, like, we're going to be jerks. We're going to, surround you, beat you, beat the crap out of you, because that's the kind of people we are, even though he just bumps into him. And even though he is as wounded as he is, Thorfinn still manages to kick the shit out of them. But this comes with consequence of him being arrested by the Sound Guard. We'll come to what happens to that in a moment. But of course, in the meantime, back to King Sweyn's banging house pie. So we of course had the setup now, of everyone arriving and the tension of previous events. This is when Sweyn and Canute start, mixing up with each other a little bit. In that Sweyn says, "I'm going to make you king of Mercia and all that. Thank God, glad you're back with us, my son." Even though you can tell from the shots that we see of it that Canute's like, "Do I have to hug this fucker? Do I really have to do this?"
Yeah.
Jesus, they know full well, even though they're putting on an act for everyone else, that the reality is very, very different.
And it's like some people know it's an act, but you still have to do it.
Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, Askeladd is watching while Thorkel treats the place like an all-you-can-eat buffet. I mean, we discussed this before, no salad bar for that guy. And he's just quietly drinking to himself, just soaking it all in. And this is the point where Sweyn reveals, "Okay, we're going to go after Ireland." And he's like, "Yep, this is all coming up Askeladd. This is like all coming
It's all coming up Askeladd. Yep. We just drew the ace of Askeladd, baby. And the royal flush. And his I love the I don't know if the show's ever done this before. They almost go full on Kaiji with the mental really, states, you know what I mean? Where he's like,
it really does
in my mind, he's like, and on the outside, he's just like,
Yeah, he's stone faced, but Askeladd is just there, just going around in circles, dancing a little jig. He's having a great time. But unfortunately, for a character who's very genre savvy, though, he makes the horrific mistake of breaking with that just for a second, because, by the way, completely without any knowledge on Sweyn's part, at least at this point, Sweyn says, "You know what? I got beef with Wales."
It's the classic, a guy says something crazy and no one challenges him on it, so he steps over the line, and while we're at it, "Fuck Wales too, yeah!"
Have you seen the replies they've been sending me on Twitter?
My mentions are a mess. They're a garbage fire.
Yeah, I've complained to management and everything, and I can't get their account taken down, so fuck it, I'm just going to invade them.
And Askeladd's face is the greatest face ever made in anime.
He's just
I wish I had screen capped it and put it on the stream, because it's incredible.
Yeah, that's the the arse. Sorry, the bottom falling out of the arse, so to speak. Yeah. That's the moment where he just realizes, oh shit. But yeah, Floki, by the way, notices this. He spots that Askeladd's face crumples up like a piece of paper. So there's going to be something made of that, especially when Floki then will later talk to Sweyn in private and say, "Hey, you know what? I think there might be something going on with him and Wales." Which, maybe he just went there and, went to a really nice restaurant, Floki. You have to jump to conclusions that he suddenly, came from the place. I mean, come on, man. But anyway, now I need to mention that this next scene here that takes place between Leif and Thorfinn in the jail is, as I understand it, and please do feel free, people listening in the chat, to correct me on this, it is anime original material. Now, I believe that's the case from what our patrons have told me in the past. If I'm wrong, then let me know. But if I'm not, Feo's confirmed that. Thank you very much, Feo. Let's just put a pin in that for something I'll be talking about later. But anyway, what is the point of this scene? So Thorfinn has obviously been put in jail, for causing a ruckus in town or some rubbish like that. Leif goes to see him. Now, we of course had seen Leif's previous attempt to try and bring Thorfinn around, and that hadn't worked. So Leif tries a different tack here, even though he does kind of mention Ilva, Helga, all the place that they came from. Thorfinn, looking, wow, I mean, I think depression.jpg would be anything, any file name I would put on a screenshot of Thorfinn in here, because he just looks utterly he's in complete despair, deflated.
There's a great juxtaposition of when Leif says, "I remember the grin on your face as a child," and it cuts to Thorfinn, and he just looks a husk of a man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
he's not saying anything, but his face alone is screaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. But Leaf then lays out, hey, let's talk about Vinland again. This is him realizing that it's not perhaps the right way to go about, bringing Thorfinn around by talking about the past. Let's talk about the future. Let's go, let's go there. This is
the
your...
Mark McGuire approach. Sorry, is this reference lost on you?
A touch.
Okay, so I have to explain it really quickly. Is fucking it just became a punchline in sports when fucking this baseball player who had done a bunch of steroids, like the government decided to do an investigation into illegal steroid use in baseball, and he was called to testify before Congress. And every time they asked him about steroids, his response was, "I'm not here to talk about the past." So it's the biggest question dodger in the world, and that just became such a punchline. I'm not here to talk about the past. So I'm sorry, you triggered it. But yeah, let's move forward to Vinland, the future.
Well, funnily enough, though, that's not going to be the last time I this one. So thank you for the sideways segue. Mm-hmm. Anyway, back to Swain's house pie. Askeladd is like thinking to himself, like in no small terms, "Oh God, I'm fucked. My country's fucked. What do I do? How do I get out of this?"
It shows his brain like slowly lighting up.
I'd like to believe that, given everything we've seen about Makoto Yukimura's like treatises on revenge being a waste of time, like that this is like one of those classic drug adverts. Like, this is your brain. This is your brain on revenge.
Perfect. Yep.
Absolutely incredible moment.
This is the Welsh brain.
This is the Welsh brain. So yeah, we in turn, get just another insert of Vinland from Leaf's perspective, like trying to start to him. Leaf also tells a tale at some point in this episode. I may have potentially skipped past in terms of time, about how he kept on going even when he was trapped on ice, which was something he had mentioned even in the very first episode, if I recall correctly. Which of course is his own like way of saying, hey, I've been through hell too, and I kept pushing on for something better and something great, and I got it in the end. Doesn't mean you can't too. That's him trying to, offer that kind of like life lesson. And hey, I've seen some shit as well kind of thing. So Thorfinn, looks set to get up and join him. At this point, by the way, in the the house party, Askeladd reveals to Thorkel like his history with Wales, because Thorkel himself actually just, hey, how did you ever get through Wales, by the way? How did you?
Right.
A question many people have been asking since then of history. How did you? I mean, I actually went on a stag do there once where I camped out. And
you went there? Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I did, and it was a good little camping trip. Don't get me wrong, really nice little Welsh village that we were in the up near Ben Nevis, not too far off from it. I got absolutely devoured by midges, like as in tiny little bitey insects. I was mossled all the way up both of my arms. Horrific stuff. I actually woke up one morning and found them just flying in on droves, like swarming at the top of my tent. I have never scrambled out of such a confined space so quickly in my entire life.
No spray?
Yeah.
Did you guys have cream or spray or nets or anything?
Doc, like, I could have literally torched the entire place with napalm and it would not stop them. There were millions of them.
You're just reminding me of, like, I don't know if I've told this story on cast before, but where I went to undergrad in Alabama, Lower Alabama, there are these things called love bugs. Are you familiar with the love bug? And not the Volkswagen in the movie, but not Herbie.
Or the state of mind.
Right. But like, I don't even know what the scientific name is, but we call them that because at a certain time of year, basically they're just ever present. They're like fucking everywhere, all over the sky, and they're just these bugs just having sex just everywhere, like all over shit, flying around all over your car, all over your Porsche. And like, so in undergrad we were living, me and my best friend and some of our buddies were living in a house together, and we just walked out and they were covering the porch to such a degree. And then my best friend like took off his shirt, wrapped it around his face like a ninja would wear a mask, grabbed a can of aerosol spray and a Japanese Bakudo that we had laying around, kicked the door open, sprayed our porch down with aerosol, and proceeded to whack all the bugs with the bakudo, shirtless. And my roommate is a 6'7", 350-pound man. And it's an incredible scene.
While you were practicing the sword.
Right. Yeah.
Just saying.
Like, what the fuck?
So yeah, Forkel showing first of many signs, at least in these two episodes, there certainly have been others, of how, hey, you might look dumb, but he ain't stupid. There's a distinction between the two. We'll come back to that when we get to the next episode, which I'll be getting to shortly. Because, King Swain, he's doling out prizes to everyone, like certificates of contribution, all that kind of thing. Everyone gets a medal. It's like going to a sports day, Everyone comes away with a participation trophy. But Askeladd's gained 50 pounds of silver, no less. So he's called up and presents himself. And, he's expecting to help with whales and all that. And this is the point where Askeladd's like, well, it's do or die time, I guess. I better do something. And that's when the episode ends. So that's 23, miscalculation. We're going to go straight on to 24, and then we'll do our talking points for both of them, of course. So we pick up pretty much where we left off in episode 24, end of the prologue. And this is where Askeladd is saying, like, dude, whales, no. You seen the TripAdvisor ratings for whales? No one goes there. I mean, Mordor, place gets written about in the future. Trust me, that's bad. This worse. Don't do it. Don't go to Wales.
Would you like to own real estate in hell, then conquer Wales?
Yeah, pretty much. I feel bad, by the way, if we have any.
I know this is the anime's opinion, not our opinion.
No, I think Wales is a lovely place. Your insects can fuck off though, but that's a different matter. So he's of course trying to convince them that Wales is a poor country, as in like poor in terms of like land quality and such, and also quite difficult to navigate. And Swain's like, well, hold on. These guys have been like, flipping me off for weeks. I am not standing for this. I won't settle for them, giving me sass. Askeladd's like, hey, no, you be generous, you'll show it, like they'll respect you. I'll go as your messenger. I'll broker peace between us and them. I'm from around there. I know the locals. I'm on good name terms. I can network. So Swain comes down from his throne and goes up to Askeladd. And again, this is punctuated by silence. Tension ratcheted up pretty high. This is some good stuff. Mm-hmm. And he actually smiles at Askeladd and says, I'm glad someone's got some balls around here to stand up and say, again, might potentially be, how should we phrasing the exact dialogue here. But he says, hey, you know what? This is a good man because he's willing to offer his king advice, and my army is full of brave and loyal soldiers like these. Thank you, Askeladd. Thank you. Come closer so I can whisper sweet somethings into your ear.
Give me a
hug,
buddy.
And then he gives Askeladd the the BioWare RPG ending choice, basically.
Yeah,
which
knows.
Is
Smart.
Do you want whales or canoe?
What a smart fucker.
Yeah. Now, you'd think, based on everything that's happened, like Askeladd would go, well, whales, obviously. Canute's just some kid. This is my country, is my identity, my birthright. Why would I do?
That would not protect it long term, though, and I think he knows that.
Well, this is true. Like Swain, I get the impression Bird is honestly as swervy as face. I mean, when you've got a face for radio like Swain, you don't trust that fucker, honestly. And if you think that's just my opinion, well, just wait what happens next, because Swain, I'm guessing, the sudden moment where your genre savviness disappears must be contagious, because he makes a catastrophic error in that he says that the only product of Wales is slaves.
Yeah.
By the by,
because he knows, right? Yeah, he knows who.
By the by, slaves and slavery, they are like common visual motifs, as well as something that's just talked about a lot in this episode. And there's a reason for that I'll get to at the end. But goddamn, Makoto Yukimura's got some fucking stones on him. Let's put it that way. So he says that to Askeladd, which is possibly the stupidest thing he could have said, and may also possibly indeed have been history's first Yo Mama joke. So there we are. I mean, that's true, though.
Fair.
So Askeladd, this is the point where his Berserk Bone has been pushed. He snaps. And he doesn't like, lose it, but
Couldn't believe this.
he starts verbally eviscerating Swain, saying that, he looks like shit. And, well,
Like,
I mean,
I was going nuts in my own home while watching this. Like, I could not believe it. Everything in the show, especially with Askeladd, has been so, like, deliberate, planned, like, thinking 3 moves. And he was still thinking 3 moves ahead here, but, like, he's never fucking stuck his neck out like this before. It's incredible, man. Oh, my God. It was so good.
It's true. But actually, put a pin in that, what you just said as well about thinking ahead and also planning. So, apologies. He starts laying to Swain. Canute has the Marge Simpson moment of, it's true, but he shouldn't say it. Thorkel looks like he's just sitting down watching Sunday football because he knows things are about to kick off pretty hard.
Yeah, he's like, oh, is he going to kill him? Crunch.
Yeah, he's loving it. So while that, powder keg is getting ready to explode, Leif is back at the dock, and he's there with Thorfinn, talking about, like, what to do next. This is the boat that I was going to take you as a kid, and now we get the chance to do it. It's going to be great, isn't it? But Thorfinn unfortunately spots a seagull or a bird nearby that he reaches out to grab but flies away. And, well, no prizes for guessing what that's meant to be a metaphor for, because he then leaves and goes back to, the meeting hall, leaving Leif behind. Poor guy. After all those years trying to find Thorfinn, he finds him, he just disappears. What a dick, honestly. But, yeah, as that's happening, Askeladd, he continues to lay into Swain. And this is the point where the guards intervene. But Swain, he really doesn't understand the dangers of violating personal space, because he's close enough now that he can be struck down by Askeladd's sword. And so all the guards come in. Canute's like, hey, Thorkel, like, chill. Let the guards handle it. Because, I mean, Thorkel's there for, the beer, booze, and bloodshed. So I'm guessing, he wanted to get the third one in on that point. But, well, after all the warnings, that everyone had ever given him about losing his head, King Swain has made the ultimate mistake. And he gets, decapitated by Askeladd in one stroke.
Yo! I was freaking out. I couldn't believe it, man. It was incredible.
I mean, that's some fucking Sam Show shit right there. Samurai Showdown.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude.
By the way, not a big talking point, but if you want to know how good, like, I get the impression, like, at least I haven't actually read, like, the earlier volumes of the manga, but that's a spoiler of something I'm going to talk about later. But I get the impression that Makoto Yukimura, when he was doing this series, actually really, like, started to exercise his, like, visual chops a bit. Because there's an amazing moment where, after Swain is decapitated, the crown flies off his head, and who should be looking through the center of the crown but Canute? Like, wow. Like, as if, like, it's hinting that this is where it's going to go next, which it turns out is true. Canute is indeed going to, now inherit the crown from his father. And then smash cut to ad break, so there's a moment for you. So
there's like by the way, there's like a Wu-Tang Clan song, or maybe it's a Jizza Liquid Sword song about, like, the intro is all about, it's from this old kung fu movie where a kid is telling the story about, like, my dad was killed by, like, the Shogun. The Shogun has his decapitator, and, like, everyone fears the decapitator. And I was just like, yo, it's the fucking decapitator right here, just throwing down. And, like, the look on his face as he's, like, when it cuts back to him just, like, killing fools is, like, kind of disturbing, low-key.
By the way, Askeladd reveals his real name here. Lucius Artorius Castus, also known as Luke to his friends.
Artie! What's up?
Yeah. Or Casty,
Casty. Get your ass to the dice table. Buy a round of beer for everyone.
Mm-hmm. So Thorfinn's, like, running back to the meeting hall, and he overhears the sounds of battle. He knows things are in ape shit. And indeed they are, because Askeladd is just cutting fools down. I mean, I know, like, none of the guards here have any names or anything like that, so you expect them just to basically cannon fodder. But for someone who is acting completely crazed, he's just going through them like a hot knife through butter. They offer nothing to stop him.
Very efficient, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's claimed at this point that he's basically the big swinging dick of England. So there you go.
The king.
Indeed, the king, no less. So everything's going completely nuts. Canute is watching with Thorkel from the stage, and things get so bad that Canute actually thinks about setting Thorkel on Askeladd, which we've discussed this before, but I think, Thorkel would probably take Askeladd handily in a fight. But nonetheless, Thorkel, again, showing that he's not just simply dumb muscle. There's a lot of nuance to him and a lot of understanding behind that one eye of his, that, he's your lapdog. I know that, you said that he's feigning madness to save Wales and you, but you're the one who's going to have to put him down.
Yeah. Really smart by Thorkel, too, honestly. Because
indeed, all that happens with Thorkel in this is very telling for a man who spends much of his physical activity in this episode eating.
Yes, and drinking and laughing throughout. And but yeah, he knows, like, if Canute puts him down, then there will be no, like, conspiracy there for people to believe.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And so at this point, Floki himself interferes to try and take out. And just cast your mind back to episode 2 when we first two characters and how we got to see how Askeladd had Floki's number so thoroughly. And now the actual mask is off and all pretenses are stripped away, that's still the case. Askeladd actually has him at his mercy, pushing him down to the ground.
He just gets to say whatever he wants. Fucking bow to me.
Yeah. He really is a paper tiger, Floki. He's absolute shit.
He does get bossed.
He does. So at this point, Thorfinn decides to treat all of the various men, like, at the front end of the hall, like Goombas in Mario, and tries to get his way over to Askeladd to intervene. But unfortunately, Askeladd, he has a bit of a stomachache on account of being stabbed by Canute. Canute steps up, stabs him cleanly in the chest, fatally. I want to just note, by the way, again, as a small thing, Canute's body language here is amazing. Because Canute is panting because you can imagine he's probably never killed anyone before. I mean, this is the kid that we saw earlier in the show's run, like reminiscing about like the joy of just simply doing cooking.
He's still that kid in some way.
He is still that kid in some respects, yeah. But he kills Askeladd there. Well, not straight away, of course. He certainly murders him, wounds him fatally. And what follows is Thorfinn gets over and starts going, no, not like this. This isn't how we planned it. There's a script, you bastard. And, well, that's not how it goes, of course. Canute, by the way, he is shaking from this. And this is when Thorkel steps in again and says, no, you need to stand. This is your moment. You have to put on an appearance.
Giving a shit about like the country and the politics suddenly, you know what I mean? I guess he really is like, you're my dude, Canute. You know what I mean? Because you would think like it would behoove him to see this whole empire fall into chaos, because then he just gets to kill people all the time, Yeah. But no, he's like, my man. Like, you got to look good. You got to step out onto the stage, and you got to, shoulders straight, head up. Like, you can't be faint. Like, it's huge. This was a huge moment.
You've got to stand proud. I think in some way, possibly that might be because Thorkel respects him for actually having the nerve to go through with it to begin with.
Sure. I see that.
And so, call this the aftercare, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, Thorfinn, he's chatting with Askeladd, saying this isn't how it was meant to be. What a line for Thorfinn's life entirely, to be quite honest. I think, again, like we said before about the whole line of it'll never be enough, that in turn is a line that I think he recognizes of his own life, just a tiny little bit in his deepest unconscious. But Askeladd, in the end, he offers his life to him, says, hey, you can kill me here and now, but well, as we say, Thorfinn, wanted to do it under the pretenses of an honourable duel for the sake of his father, sort of. But Askeladd says, hey, how are you going to live your life now? What are you going to do next? Does Thorfinn have an answer for that? Of course he doesn't. Of course not.
No.
Because there is no life for him beyond that moment. There isn't a single moment that he's thought of it, with the possible exception of his thoughts about Vinland. But that, to me, in my mind, would read more as a dream, than any sort of like thing he could tangibly have. But well, in a scene that mirrors somewhat the death of Thors, believe it or not, because of the white space around it.
I mean, I have so much to say about this that I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to get out of the way.
Yeah, he says, hey, you know what? Go on, son of Thors. A very telling line from Askeladd as well, actually, which, again, we'll discuss in a bit, but oh boy. But then, unfortunately, Lucius Castus Arturus, Mr. Askeladd himself, big swinging Viking daddy and rapper extraordinaire, he passes away. That's it.
And the big dinner hall in the sky.
Well, no. The last scene in Askeladd's eyes is of the sea. And do you recall what was discussed about the legend of Artorius and how when wounded, he would go across the sea to the island to recover to then come back later?
Oh, fuck! You're right. Oh my god! Wow!
But bear in mind, but on top of that, that does double duty as well, because that's following his line about Thorfinn following his own life, and of course, what is also across the sea in Thorfinn's own personal myth. Vinland. So yeah, Canute manages to pry the sword off his hands. Again, loving the body language here. He's so shaken by this, he can't actually physically drop the sword. He has to pull his fingers off it like this. And then, he says to Thorfinn, look, I know you won't forgive me for this, but it had to be done. Go live your life. Go be free. I won't judge you. I won't condemn you, all that sort of stuff. And Thorfinn has a look that just... It's a look of someone who, oh my god, like...
Please hold me.
I can't even describe it. I'm looking at it as I'm watching this, and it's a look completely devoid of anger, completely devoid of hate. It's nothing like, for example, the look we first saw when he was scowling at Askeladd when he was much younger in episode 5. But it's just chilling.
It's chilling, is right.
It's like looking into the abyss. And Thorkel, however, again, being savvier than people, recognizes what's about to happen and intervenes as almost like a reflex. Thorfinn lunges at Canute and manages to slice him on the cheek, but he is then restrained by Thorkel. Canute, however, says, no, you're not to touch him.
Why is he just... My body, how do I say what the feelings are? How do I get these feelings out, Shadon? Like, that the only way he knows how to react is to take a swing at him.
It's all he's ever known.
Oh, it's so gutting, man.
Well, I said about genre savviness being contagious. Vengeance in turn, can switch targets quite easily if you want it to, under the right circumstances. It's like chainmail. No one wants it, but everyone just passes it around.
I highly doubt that will happen, but point taken. Man.
So he's restrained. Canute takes up his father's crown and starts making orders, starts taking charge. Mm-hmm. And we end
with the blood. The blood and the crown. Yes. Yes. So fucking good.
Mm-hmm. It came at a price in the end, and I can spoil this a little bit from the manga. That wound scars Canute, and
the kid show.
And you know how much of a sucker I am. I've said this before about the idea of scars serving as physical reminders for previous traumas.
You love scars.
I mean, physical wound though it is, it still also shows about his psyche and what he's been through as well. I mean, this is why Thorfinn is so bloodied in these episodes, because it's not really so much about how physically hurt he is, but how emotionally and mentally damaged he is.
Yeah.
Anyway, Thorfinn is dragged away by guards. Not even Kell, his paternal his familial granduncle gives a shit. And I've got to give credit to Thorfinn's voice actor. He lets out a guttural yell here that, that's the kind of thing that if I wasn't playing on my headphones, every dog in my neighborhood would start barking.
I mean, look,
it's insane. Can you imagine voice directing that?
I've watched hundreds of anime, literal hundreds. Not as many as apparently Mirror, by the way, in here. Throwing her cloud around saying I've watched 6,000 anime and I've never heard of the Marshmallow Times. But look, I don't even know if I've seen 1,000 anime, but I've seen a lot of.
Taste in you, to be fair.
She does have great taste.
I had to throw that.
Well, neither one. Look, I haven't seen the Marshmallow Times either. What was I saying? Oh yeah, no, I've seen a lot of really great voice acting performances. This is up there with the best I've ever seen. Like this, in this very specific thing that you need, like this kind of emotional scream, sound, guttural noise, hopeless person, like at the end of their rope, just letting their despair sing out. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard it done better. It's incredible.
I really hope they gave him like something to drink afterwards.
I mean, there's
that fruit must have been raw as hell after that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's like the whole sort of cottage industry of like power screaming and shonen battle stuff, and that takes its own kind of talent, of course. I mean, that lady who plays Goku still crushing it at her age is pretty phenomenal. But I mean, this is something very different. You know what I mean?
You say about cottage industry there, Doc, but I mean, think of it this way, right? I said before. Well, we get the first reaction video in history with Thorfinn. Thorfinn reacts to the objects of his vengeance being murdered by someone else. Click here to subscribe.
Please stop this.
But yeah, it's pretty horrifying, that noise. It's pretty bad. And we then get what is arguably the end of the episode, at least, or rather the end of this story arc, as Thorfinn's dagger, Thor's dagger no less, because of the runes we see carved on it, is forced from his hand. And as it falls, we see reflections of all the various events, including prior to Thor's death, of course, like when he was much younger, play out in the reflection, which I've seen someone note on Twitter, who I apologize, I can't remember who it was. So this is not my observation. This is me just mentioning someone else's. I'll confess that much. It's a parallel to the very first time that Thorfinn held that dagger, when he was looking at his reflection in its gleam, when he took out Thor's chest. So yeah.
Did you think of Green Bird again when when the dagger was slowly falling through the sky? Admittedly, it wasn't a person falling from a building, so it's a different thing.
Sadly not, no. But then we get a couple of scenes, short clips, of events that are actually from the future, believe it or not.
Say hello to people that mean nothing to you if you're an anime-only viewer.
One of them something to me.
Yes, of course.
Because I'll talk about that in a bit. But these are characters that are from future events in the show. So that's more, I suppose, a little bit of like fan service for, people who've read the manga in full. Whether or not that means we will get a second season of Vinland Saga or not, I really can't say. Part of me thinks that won't happen simply because it's been tracked on Amazon Prime, and Amazon, have not necessarily been the most, how should we say, exposed market for anime, not least of which because their UI sucks my taint.
God.
It really does. It's shit.
It's gotten slightly better over here with a couple of updates. I can actually click a button to view anime now. Now, granted, the second result when I click that button is Avatar: The Last Airbender. So, there you go. But it's better than nothing. It's better than trying to sift through family movies or science fiction, you know what I mean? Or just having no way to, like, browse through anime. So,
well, it's like I said about Banana Fish, though. Like, if you're a kid looking, you might end up clicking on Banana Fish by accident, and then, oh dear. Enjoy your childhood trauma. It's great. But yeah, that concludes Vinland Saga, the prologue, as it happens, because that's the episode's name. And indeed, it does not end there, of course. I mean, it would be disappointing if it did. But I know full well, because you might be able to see it in the corner over there, I have volumes 5 and 6 of Vinland Saga. Just saying there. I've read 5. 6 is something I'll be getting onto soon enough. But there's plenty more to come after it. Is now the time I tell you, by the way, about what happens to Thorfinn in the immediate aftermath of this? Do you want me to tell you? Because this is technically spoilers for outside the anime. But our patrons noted, for example, that what technically should be the end of this arc doesn't actually happen in the anime. It gets cut off a little earlier for like a couple of chapters beforehand, before then picking up at the start of Volume 5. Like, if you get Volume 4, like Swain's death and Askeladd's death in turn, like, aren't the end of that book. There's a little bit more after that.
Mm.
Do you want to know, Doc? Are you ready to have some psychic agony?
Are
you in a right headspace now to receive some bad news?
I don't know how to answer this question because I want to know, but I also am thinking for people that watch this, like, because it's not just patrons. You know, this is a public thing. Maybe we want to keep the manga out of it. Maybe we could just offer warnings here and be like, this is the spoiler section.
Well, actually, no, I'm going to go one better because you and I are doing this by Discord. So I mentioned reaction videos. Let's enjoy this moment where, I'm going to type out to Doc what happens next. And, well, I want you all to just drink in this moment. So, without further ado.
Okay.
All right.
It's sending. It's coming through space.
I'm not saying it right.
Oh, wait,
so,
okay.
3, 2, 1. Ladies, gentlemen, Emmys, thank you very much for joining us on Warui Deshou to cover the final 2 episodes of Vinland Saga. Unfortunately, there are no more talking points, as Doc has just left to go to his local bar and drink all of the alcohol there in a single go.
Shadon! What are you saying? That can't be.
Oh,
that can't be how it goes.
I'm afraid it is. That is exactly what happens.
That can't be how it goes.
No, I shit you not. I'm not.
Like, I hate this. I officially hate this. What is Leaf doing? Is he just like, oh, I can't find him. I'm not going to look for him. I'll smoke and then go away.
Look, I mean, come on. Facebook doesn't exist then. It's not like, you know, he could check where Forth is checked in at. That is literally what happens. Now, I grant you, what I have just typed to Doc is an incredibly abridged 5-word version of what happens and doesn't go into specifics. So take it for that as opposed to the more fleshed out version of events that follow. But yes, that is what happens. And therefore, what happens after that in Volume 5 is Thorfinn's life as a result of this moment. So, yeah.
Fuck the world, man.
Do you remember how bad we felt about the end of Banana Fish?
Yes.
Will we ever do a 2-core anime as part of Stream 4 in the run up to Christmas every year that doesn't end on such a downer?
Thanks, Christmas. You jackass.
Christmas Cole, more like.
Fucking. What the fuck? And I mean, I guess Frank's didn't run up to Christmas, but that was like a 2-core thing we did, and we were just happy it was over.
Yeah, that ran up to summer, so I'm, you know. Oh boy. Well,
I mean, I'm gonna have to get the comics now and figure this shit out. I need to tell my library to get it. Jesus. Are the volumes like really big?
Well, I'll show you actually. Okay. By the way, I'm not going to show anyone spoilers for the back, but I'll also confirm, by the way, this is not rich mahogany, nor is this Corinthian leather as much as I would like it to be. So, just a moment, folks.
I'm stunned by that this would be allowed to happen. Can you show the what happened? No, don't put it back. No, he put it back.
So there you are. It's a big book.
Mm-hmm. I didn't get to see the thickness of it. Like, I saw the cover, but that's all right.
Well, to give you a comparison, since it's next to it, is 2 Watchmen's.
Okay, so yeah, okay. Well, I was just wondering if they're omnibus editions that you have, or like the standard tankobons, or if there are even omnibus. I mean, I can do this research on my own, but I want to waste your time with it, or the patron's time. 400 pages is good. That's like probably double or like 175% of what most manga volume tankobons are. They're like between like 200 250 pages, I think, for the normal one. So that's good.
All right, have you recovered from that psychic damage I just inflicted?
I mean, I guess so. I can try. Right. I have to try. We can't not do the talking points. So, well, okay. So I guess I will try to start. I'll try to. Okay. Try to get back to the space I was in when I didn't know that information. It's only 23:24. Well. Just in general, I just want to say, again, I think that these episodes are a triumph for the show. I think front to back, they look incredible. I think there's just this extra coat of polish. And maybe it was me viewing it on a different monitor. I don't know. But to me, it looked way better than the normal run-of-the-mill Vinland episode. Not every single Vinland episode, because the last one looked pretty good too, but yeah, they looked really good, and again, they were like, I think, playing to the strengths of the show, which is like, it was all about the characters and the political intrigue. Like, It was so tense. Like some of those moments, like you said, when the music fades out and they walk into the room.
I know, you just hear footsteps, doop, 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 like that,
and then the king. This is like, we're going after whales, and you're just like, don't.
Well, he's holding his hand out, no less.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, Askeladd, don't fuck up. That's what I'm thinking. Like, don't fuck up. Fucking just wait. Don't do some dumb shit. And then he like puts himself out there, and you're just like, oh my god, what is gonna happen? And then, that whole thing where like he contradicts the king, and everyone is holding their breath like, this motherfucker gonna die. And then the king's like, oh my boy, you have some real, you got a real set on you. So this is what a loyal subject is. And then dude just unloads a fucking verbal revolver right in his face. But the like, you look like shit. You're not a king. You you're not the rifle king. You're like a fucking barbarian. And you're gross, and they're just like, oh no, what is gonna happen? He's really fine. And then he beheads him, and it's incredible. And you're just like, he
took Swain's head off in the same way that you take the cap bottle of beer. Mm-hmm. It was as casual and clean as that.
But this, everything is built up to this confrontation. So much is like behind it, just backstories. Character development, like the plot, like kind of Askeladd laying these very intricate plans, and Canute coming around, and then just the fact that immediately, without missing a beat, Canute, smart motherfucker, does not like give anyone the chance to think that they are in cahoots, and just says, get that man. He murdered the king. Like,
he does not
smart.
show weakness.
So smart. And he not only does he not show weakness, the fact that like that one part where he talks to Thorkel and says, let Askeladd run wild, like he's earned this because he's doing all this for me, that he realizes that this is this big elaborate scheme to kill the king, save Canute, and save whales by sacrificing himself, and also completely making it so that Canute looks totally innocent. Like the fact that Canute has picked up on all this, so savvy. And it's all just an Askeladd looking like a demon as he's killing people, and Thorfinn broken but coming back to the scene and getting broken again. Like it's all characters paying off all this long build-up. The revenge story, the Canute trying to be the king, Askeladd trying to manipulate everything. Everything came together in these two episodes, and it was amazing. Incredible payoffs.
Yeah. It is the fireworks display that this show was promising, and it's certainly delivered on it. Like, what a finale to this arc.
And it means nothing. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say it doesn't mean nearly as much without everything that came before. The slow build worked. It was not always the most entertaining thing in the world at times in the middle. And could you have maybe trimmed it up and done it in 17 episodes instead of 22? Probably. But I think on the whole, it was just a rousing, raging success.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, so let me get on to my first talking point. This one I'm actually going to take free. I'm going to talk about the content which involved the jail scene with Thorfinn and Leif. So here's the thing, right? It's very easy, I think, for us to praise a show that is adapted from manga and then perhaps short sell the creators of the anime itself, because they're just adapting existing, well-regarded material. I mean, this is Eizouken, for example. Like, we could, in theory, just simply, say, hey, great show, well done, Masaki Yuasa. No worried about the writers, because who gives a shit about what they've done? They're adapting the existing material. They're just bringing it into a new theatre, so to speak. But I've really got to give key props here to the creators of this particular scene, the people who spun it out of thin air. Because I love this scene in so many ways, both in terms of what it means and how it looks.
It's good.
So let's start from actually just talking about how it looks. First off, there's a moment when Leif is talking to Thorfinn, and Thorfinn is on this side of the frame in the cage, and Leif is on the other, and the iron barriers between them, is completely solid black down the middle. It is a literal dividing line that serves as blocking to show the division between the two. The threshold, if you will, that Leif is trying to cross to reach Thorfinn and convince him to give the whole thing up and come with him. So you've got that to begin with. And then you've got the lighting. Now, admittedly, I can see people complain this is a bit too on the nose and a bit too obvious, but note how things are lit. Thorfinn is in the dingy corner of this little jail cell here, while Leif is framed, in the actual alley in the middle, like the corridor in the middle, going up to the stairs that leads to the outside where the sun is gleaming in. It frames the behind of him, and that is, the exit from this place that Thorfinn is in, physically, to something beautiful that awaits him if only he would follow, in turn, with Leif leading the way. And then you've got the visual metaphor in of itself, which is the cage. I discussed this with you when you and I actually talked about Persons, which was when we discussed Yukiko's shadow, and how in the anime, they actually made the cage that she was in a part of the shadow itself, which I took to infer as being a cage of her own creation as a result.
Right.
And this applies here as well. Not in the same context necessarily, of course, but more, everything that's happened to Thorfinn has led him to this point. You might say, well, duh. But I'm talking not just in the sense of him physically being, in jail, being, in prison, but think of it as a metaphor for his life, this cage that he's put himself in, this prison, of wanting vengeance against Askeladd. It feels almost kind of inevitable that he would end up in such a place with everything that's happened. See him also being very bloody and all that. And then, of course, we also see how he looks in this, deflated, defeated even, broken, battered, bruised, and bloody. Every part of this scene, I think, through anime original content, and I don't know whether or not because bomb this or not, but it doesn't matter to me. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a wonderful addition that really hits all the right notes in every respect. They clearly thought about how to convey meaning through blocking, through lighting, through, the metaphor of the prison itself. It's rich in detail in so many respects. I was deeply, deeply impressed by that moment, and it fits naturally in the rest of the material.
I'm going to just hot take here, I guess, and say I think that...
Are you going to say I'm full of shit?
No. I'm going to
I'm kidding.
I'm going to do the King Swain thing, and I'm going to take a step further and say that I think the manga is worse off for not having this scene.
Ooh.
I don't think I'm not saying by any means the manga is bad, but I think, as you say, this benefited so much and fit in so much and helped. It helped me really come to grips with where he was directly, and I think I needed it. I needed to be. I mean, of course, we get the scene at the end, but like, this just worked for me so well on all the levels that you mentioned that I think not having it is like worse. And like like Gogo just said, you definitely would not know it was original. I had no idea.
It blended seamlessly with it.
And the fact that Yukimura is so on board with it, I think is just, there you go. It speaks for itself.
Yeah. I mean, I've said before, like, about how, for me, adaptation is something that I feel creatives should have a lot of leeway on, as long as they keep to the spirit of the original work. Now, I'll grant you, of course, we're not going to see them, like, do things like, say, take Thorkel uppercutting the horse out, or any of the other moments like that. But I think that where you have the latitude in order to actually enhance the story by adding more to it that is in line with its original spirit and its ideas, I don't see why you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's brave, and secondly, it also can really help make it work better. Like, original materials, like, books and such, or manga that we adapt from anime or live action, they're not religious text, they're not scripture, they're not Bibles. If you need to change them, if you want to change them in your mind to help make the work better, as long as you think long and hard about it, do it. Don't be afraid to do so, in my opinion, if you're an adapter.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it here, and I think it pays real dividends. I have two final things to say. First of which is also, I actually think this scene is intended to also parallel the very beginning scene of the first episode, or one of the first scenes of the first episode, where we meet the slave. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you remember how he was battered, broken, bruised, and
totally,
he had tried to escape from something, barely alive? Look at what's happened to Thorfinn. It feels like, him being in the same kind of place, with someone trying to drag him out of that and let him move on to a new place in his life by giving him the dream of Vinland. It feels like a bookend to that moment. The only thing I would say is that I could see the argument being made, because I know that some of our patrons, manga than I am, have said that they were concerned about, getting all the necessary material in the closing moments, and indeed that didn't happen because, well, like I said, Volume 4 does not end where the anime ends. There is at least a couple more chapters afterwards before Volume 5.
Do you feel like it ended in a good place, though? I mean, or would a better place have been?
I can't answer that question without knowing how.
Sharon. Sharon, you think? That's the best typo ever, Sophie.
Sophie, how did you learn my Saturday? God damn it! Are you spoiling my secret identity here?
It's incredible.
But what I mean to say is, I don't think I could answer that question, Doc, without knowing what a season 2, episode 1 would look like. Because without again spoiling, but having knowing what you know, can you imagine seeing Thorfinn in that state as a cold open to the first episode of season 2, and then having the first episode backfill from there? I think that would be incredibly effective.
Sure.
I think that would really get people thinking, what the fuck happened between the end of that and this to make him end up there in that place in his life, and we backfill. That, I think, would be an amazing cold open.
Yeah. My brain can't go
you're,
to the hypothetical place.
You're still deeply pained by that, aren't you?
I am, but I'm coming to terms with it. I am. Because, like he told Leaf in the prison. I think he said this in jail. Don't talk to me. But he's told them don't talk to me about home now, right? And to me, that makes total sense. Of can you imagine him just going home? You know what I mean? Just being like, Mom, Ilva, I guess I'm home. This guy...
You won't believe the time I've had. It's been wild.
This guy is a walking wound, and he needs to be drained of pus. He needs to be cauterized. He needs to have the infection drawn out of him.
He needs to be made He needs to be made empty. And that's me, dog whistling to people who've read Volume 5, but I will say no more than that.
Yeah, I mean, he has to. I think at this point he really does have to earn that privilege of going home, and he has to figure out. I mean, he's got to grapple with what, you know, his second father told him on his deathbed, which we can talk about in a moment or now if you want. But he's got to figure out like what the fuck that means for his life. He's got so much shit to sort out before he like moves on. 'Cause he needs to move on. He's needed to move on forever. But like clearly, he is just. It cannot happen instantaneously. There needs to be this kind of purgatory purification period for him. And maybe maybe that's what that is, that period that you told me about of his next phase of life.
Well, you know what I would describe as sideways tangent here, folks, but I was recently reading kind of a journalistic long read, if you will, on a kid who had been raised in a doomsday cult. Deeply regimented, no knowledge of the outside world, anything like that. And then, like, when he was about 15, he was then, like, the police intervened, took him and his his other siblings into custody and arrested the mother and father and all the aunts of the cult, quote unquote. And then he had to live in the normal world again. And that, to me, feels like kind of a similar thing. Like, you've lived... not in a doomsday cult, of course, but certainly in a similar kind of way, in a very encapsulated, deeply like precision laser-focused worldview. Mm-hmm. And now suddenly that has been torn from him, like without his actual like consent.
Such a fucking good analogy you're making here.
Yeah, like that's been torn from him. So what happens next? Like, you know, he's just gonna be whirling around, or even just broken, like mentally traumatized.
He'll get like the equivalent of the bins if he just tries to like go to the surface. You know what I mean? Or like
I am cursed. This is one of the few times where I've got the knowledge. I am cursed with knowledge on, you know, what happens in Volume 5. So I'm gonna just keep my mouth shut on that. But that's how I see it being done here. Like that this is like Thorfinn's, you know, how do I put it? Like, I would call it his death of sorts, but not the death in the sense like, you know, that he literally dies.
Sure.
But rather, this is the end of the Thorfinn that we've known for so long, and like the beginning of another, a different kind. Like, you know, still looks the same, might even talk a little bit the same, but will be a very different person indeed.
It's the real King Arthur, motherfuckers. Oh Jesus!
Well, wow. we all know. We all know really that Thorfinn is basically an assassin version of Saber, you know, from Fate Stay Night. You know, they've done enough, you know, different variations.
I thought Canute was. I guess Canute then is like Joan of Arc. What is Joan of Arc's class? It's like a special
ruler.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna say it's a new special class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Caster Jonah. I don't know. But anyway,
yeah, it is ruler. Yeah, it is ruler. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. Please.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Let's talk about Askeladd.
Let's do it. Let's talk about our boy.
Let's talk about. Well, let's talk about.
I mean, hey, you just to address Yuki in chat. It has to happen eventually. I know this is like the first time on the podcast I've had that, so it's a red letter day for me, and I'm very proud of myself. I'll say that much. So please don't diminish this amazing moment. Thank you, good sir.
So like, well, I guess you can't. I mean, I say Askeladd, but this will be about Thorfinn too. You know, because he doesn't get his revenge. And talk about, you know, we mentioned the guttural noise after Askeladd's death. We mentioned the scene in the prison where he is just broken and a shell of a human being. And to me, another one of those kind of scenes that really did legit choke me up was when Askeladd had been stabbed and was on the ground, and Thorfinn flew across the room and goes over to him and says, "We need to get away. Like, come on. Like, let's get up. Let's go." That he is still at this point, he's protecting this guy. The person that he supposedly hates, like, I think I mean, does he hate him? He does. But does he also kind of love him? Is he also kind of his father, his second father at this point, in a weird, fucked up, unhealthy, toxic, death cult, as you say, sort of way? Like, kind of. Yeah, Thorfinn needs him. Thorfinn needs this shitbag. And it broke my heart in that moment that, like,
it's an abusive relationship.
Yes, it is.
It's gaslighting.
He can't see that all he has to do is walk to Canute's side, and then he's set. He's got a palace life. Yeah. He'll be taken care of. He'll have a good job. He'll be respected.
Yeah. Just needs to literally give him a high five.
We'll love, like, Beowulf again in the same way like a battered spouse would love. You know what I mean? Like, attachment is right, but like there's a deep need there. You know, it's not like a sort of like, well, I'll scratch my back if you scratch yours. This is a purely pragmatic relationship. I don't think. I mean, I think he really fucking is lost without this guy. And I don't know. I mean, it's certainly not healthy. So I guess if you want to define love as de facto this healthy thing, then it's not that. But he has a deep attachment, as you say, and there's really, really something there. And the fact that, like, this is happening, and he's like, come on, gotta get up, buddy. Let's go. You know? And then it dawns on him he's gonna die, of course, and he's like, no, I was supposed to fucking kill you. It was supposed to be me. Like, what does he have? Like, he's encountering, like, for real. Like, we've thought for a long time, right? Like, he's not going to get to have the revenge. But here he is. Here is this reality right smack in his face. And it's so terrifying. Like, it terrified me on second hand because, like, it's like the next step he takes in his life, he's like stepping off a cliff. I mean, like, he has no plan, no idea. He's not living for anything. When Askeladd dies, he will have no reason in his own mind to live. That's terrifying.
I mean, his compass has been set so long to magnetic Askeladd.
Yeah.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
How do you navigate your life after that?
And at some point over the years, it becomes about more than I need to kill this guy. When you're a little kid, depending on this guy for food and, like, you know, living in his tents, and, like, of course that's still there that he wants to kill him, but I'm sure it's more complicated and tangled up, and vines and weeds of, like, all these weird contradictory feelings have grown up over that revenge. And it's so muddled and it's so multifaceted now. It's not simple. And that comes across in just these few moments. I keep having to, like, re-fucking start my phone because instead of writing my notes down, I took them in Google Note. So, and then Askeladd. I am really torn because, like I mentioned earlier, he really gets this, like, second father deathbed moment of, like, buddy, son, hand on shoulder, let me counsel you here as I'm about to shuffle off this mortal coil. And part of me is like, you don't deserve this. You absolute rat bastard. You die. You fucking die, you evil man. Like, you don't. But then it's like in his own fucked up way, like, he's kept Thorfinn around and he's got, like, weird feelings for him too. You know what I mean? Like, he's attached to this kid too in a way. Not as he certainly doesn't need Thorfinn as much as Thorfinn needs him, but, like, I mean, he clearly something was there. Why else would he do this whole thing on his? Why else would he give a fuck about, like, telling this kid how to live his life? I don't think he's just been like, I'm going to stick it to this kid one more time before I die. I don't think that's the case. I think there's some real emotion there.
Well, indeed, when we saw him, you know, duel Thorfinn the last time, kick him 7 ways from Sunday, he did lay the truth down on him. And that's what, you know, already, like, mentally broke Thorfinn as it was anyway. I think that Askeladd had gotten to the point now, given everything that's happened, where he realized he couldn't let this continue, you know, onwards. He had to try and, you know, knock some truth into him. But like I say, how does one like knock truth into someone else who's lived this delusion, this like schema of thinking for
Yeah.
a decade or more?
And it's your own fault, you person who want to knock truth into him. It's your fault, you know?
It's crazy.
God. And like,
Oh my God, Sophie. You did not just write that. For the
So,
benefit
like-
of people listening to this on podcast, I just need to quote what Sophie said. Oh gods, Askeladd and Thorfinn have the relationship dynamics of Tom and Jerry. I
Sharon, what are we gonna do?
Is it my turn now to storm off?
It might be your turn, but okay.
I
try to.
You're not wrong, Sophie. So I'll leave it at that.
Trying to bring it back. Trying to focus. So, what did you make of the last words? The like, go beyond Thor's, become a true warrior, move on from. And look, is it shitty, of course, for him, the man who killed his dad, to be like, it's time for you to move on from me killing your dad? Yes, it's awful. But also, is it true that he needs to move on? Yes, it is true. And unfortunately for Thorfinn, the person that cares about him and is in a position to tell him is also the one that did that. So he's gonna do it. But like, yeah, what did you make of the advice there? The go beyond your dad stuff.
I think the first thing that's key is noting that Askeladd reminds him that he is Thor's son.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as you said, like, you know, he kind of became a surrogate father of sorts in a very twisted way, of course, but nonetheless he fit that role. And I know what you're reacting to there. I'm just going to ignore it.
You cannot.
And this is to go even further beyond. Oh, man.
Okay, no. We must. It's hard. It's hard, though.
I know it's difficult.
We invite the distractions. we indulge in them so often.
Damn you all.
All right.
But I think that firstly him knows, hey, just kind of a thing to remind him, hey, I am a bad person in a way. I'm not your father. Not even, I know biologically, obviously not, but not in terms of even being a father figure. So I think that's a key confession on his part, just to kind of reframe that in Thorfinn's mind. Now, obviously, Thorfinn's known all along that his father is Thor's, but I think that, you know, a part of him, like, we saw the framing of him holding up Askeladd's, like, tattered cloak, you know, where it was all shaded in white, in the same way as with Thor's death, where he's, like, at his knees, like, holding onto his, like, trousers. I mean, you can see it there, can't you? The parallel is very evident.
Yes.
So I think that firstly is a key confession on his part. And I don't know, maybe maybe it is on Askeladd's own indirect confession of his part in all this, that, hey, he has done bullshit to Thorfinn. And he wants to put him back on the right path as he originally saw it. I mean, Thors himself did have that discussion with Askeladd when he needs to be a true warrior and such. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that it's extremely complicated to try and like work out my own feelings, because Askeladd to me is probably one of the most compelling villains I've seen recently in anime. But bear in mind, I did say villain.
Totally, yeah. I'd like one of the most memorable ones since like Griffith. You know what I mean? Like in terms of complexity and charisma and all that sort of thing. Yeah, but as you say, also still bad. Villainous.
Yeah. Well, this ties into something I'm going to talk about in a moment, actually. But think of it this way, right? Askeladd, in my opinion, is a product of his time. He's a product of the times he lives in. And at the very end, I think he recognizes it, like he realizes that he can no longer allow any of this to continue, which is why he takes the third option of killing Sweyn there and then, even though it will probably cost him his own life. Like, Sweyn and Askeladd do what Thorfinn can... Sorry, not Sweyn, sorry. Canute and Askeladd do what Thorfinn cannot in the end. They take direct action without rigid belief structures or rules or laws stopping them from doing so. They break out of these things that they built in over themselves for so long to actually take affirmative action and bring things to an end.
Yeah, they're living by their own way. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of it, like it's kind of like a revenge, because like Askeladd obviously knows Swain is responsible his own way for fucking with Wales and like ruining everything, and in the end though, his revenge against Swain, or like him murdering him, then it also then establishes Canute, and in turn leaves Canute indebted to him, and like I think Canute would probably be pretty honourable in his own right, in making sure Wales is left alone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the lesson here is to be shown that for Thorfinn, he really, if he did want Askeladd dead, should have done it long ago and not been held back by notions of honor or face saving, even, I would say.
Still complaining about the duel at the very last.
Yeah. I don't even think anymore that it was necessarily an abstract term of honor, but more just upholding his father's reputation.
Yep.
After this point, no one gives a fuck who Thors is anymore, and I don't think anyone had done for quite a while. Like, people knew him as the Troll of Yom and all that, but did that matter anymore? I mean, Thors himself didn't want it to matter anymore. So all of this stuff that Thorfinn's been working for has been the aid of something that his own father would, for many reasons, not least of which being, the continued revival of his reputation as a warrior in the worst possible way. Like, he would see it as awful.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the other lessons. I mean, this is something we've talked about previously about how, hey, Vinland Saga is suggesting that rigid belief systems, be it religion, be it personal ethics, morals, values, or whatever, they're not necessarily like things that you should stick to cast iron. If you need to break out of them in order to do something, in the here and now for the greater good, even if it's something like heinous, you should. Because hanging on to that belief system to make sure things are done in the proper way, as you see it, that will allow suffering to go on continually. And it could very well even be your own suffering. I mean, look at Thorfinn, like all these confessions we've seen of him, it'll never be enough. It wasn't meant to be this way. Like I've said before, and I'll say again, those lines, as much as they are his anger, about how things are different, I think that in turn that's his recognition on some level that he knows that this is all wrong and perverse and twisted.
Mm-hmm.
So even he knows that, but he doesn't ultimately act on it. And now it's been taken from him. I mean, I suppose you and I can ask you a question. In fact, let me ask you.
Oh, can I answer the question I posed to you though first?
Yes, go on.
Okay. So the deathbed council, the last words of Go Beyond Thors.
Hear my words, Thorfinn. Your hair is stupid. Get it cut, you shit. Blah.
Vader, you must confront Vader. Isn't that what Yoda says before he dies?
Well, no, you've obviously got to make the Vader line. It is too late for me.
Oh, yeah, son, yeah. Yes.
Man, can we get someone photoshopping Askeladd's face in the Darth Vader helmet? Oh, no, I can go one better. Can you imagine Askeladd throwing King Swain down the Death Star chute? That's such a glorious image in my mind.
Oh, Jesus. So, yeah. I think this might tie up to some degree, or at least I'm thinking of the two scenes. When Leif tells Thorfinn, what do you think Thors was running away from? Back in the prison, he's running away from the strife and the burdens and all the horrors of war and the cycle that is he has to participate in. And at that point, Thorfinn looks up into the blue sky, right? Sees the clouds, and to me, this sort of indicates Thors was running away from that to freedom to be able to choose his own life. And I think when Thorfinn realized that and looked up, I think he got scared. I think freedom is terrifying concept to him because he lashed out at Canute when Canute offered that to him. Because he has never had that. He's always been in like a parasitic kind of arrangement with someone. He's never been free. I mean, what is that, right? And so, like, so he's being freed while Askeladd is dying. And part of me is still like, you motherfucker. You don't deserve this. You don't deserve this death scene. You don't deserve to go out on your own terms. Killing the king and being like, yeah, boy, I did it. I saved Wales. I killed Swain. I did everything I wanted to do. And now, Thorfinn, let me tell you what's up. But you try to think of a different way to write it. And you'd have to rewrite so much of it to have someone. I think it's very intentional, though. Like, because as I say, Askeladd is a product of his time. And so all the awful shit that he's done, we're not meant to sympathize. We're meant to recognize that, hey, you know, his death is a tragedy, not because he himself is a tragic person necessarily. Like, we feel bad because he did all these wonderful things, but precisely because he did all those bad things and he could have been something else. He could have been better than that. You're right.
And that's why him killing Swain is a big deal, because he's trying to break that cycle. We've talked about cycles, you know, things happening over and over again. Will Canute follow in the footsteps of his father? You know, or will he break away from it? Will he find a better answer, just as Thorfinn has to find a better answer? Because, I mean, spoilers for the previous episodes of Vinland Saga, Thor's philosophy got him killed. Whoops. Right, and I think this is where Askeladd may be coming from with surpass your father, right? Like, you know, tells him to fucking unfreeze your life. Unfreeze time, move on from these moments that you've been stuck in. And, you know, your dad was an incredible warrior, but as you pointed out, Shadon, and have done many times, his kind of rigidness maybe as far as I won't kill. Yeah, that moral code seem to, and again, I don't know if the show is condemning that or not, but like Askeladd certainly thinks that's what got him killed. And yeah, just the whole like, look, go beyond where your dad got, like be a true warrior that maybe doesn't hide away and run away from the cycle, but like finds a way to break it, maybe, because I don't know, maybe that's what he's interested in. I don't know. I'm struggling with like what it means. Well, there's something else to know. He says to Thorfinn, go be a true warrior. What did Thor say a true warrior was? Someone who has no enemies. No need for a sword. He had one enemy, only one, and they're now gone. So believe it or not, the path has been opened up for him to become the true warrior that his father had said he should be. It had to be forced on him, to be sure, but it has happened. Interesting. I have a question for you then, Doc. Ask me the question. All right, so this is the tough one. Now, I'm not going to say it's impossible that in an alternate version that Thorfinn couldn't have killed Askeladd in a duel. I think it would have taken an exceptionally long time to happen and may very well have only ended up about because Askeladd decided, you know, he got arthritis or some shit like that, you know. Just because age takes him, not because of like anything else, not because of Thorfinn's own talent. So the question I'm going to ask you is this, though. Do you think, in the end, the only way that Thorfinn could ever have been freed from his vendetta was because someone else killed Askeladd? Do you think it had to happen that way for him to have been free? Because there's no way he would have ever, like, got to the point where he would be able to take Askeladd out himself. I think if you're talking about this as if it was real life, then there are many ways it could have happened. But I think in terms of this fiction, to get across all the different points that the author seems to want to get across, I think this was a necessary thing. That's where I'm at on it. That yeah, he has to reckon with not having anything to live for and also like failing at his life's pursuit,
and come out the other side of that somehow. Despite reaching a point where he clearly did give up in this, in episode 23.
I would agree. I believe that's as well. That, it's possible sometimes, and has happened, for people to break free of their own, life structures and life choices that are, of course, incredibly toxic for them. But sometimes it's also very necessary for intervention as well. Now, granted, that was not Canute's original intent, of course, in killing Askeladd. But I personally can't see how this would have ever come to pass. And even if it had come to the point where, say, Thor was 40 and Askeladd was 70, and he's hobbling around, he can barely move, and he finally kills him just because he's too old to fight back. That's even more of a tragedy than it is right now, because that's so many more years
wasted. What a hollow victory. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So for me, I think that it was necessary, for someone else to do that in the end, to set forth him free in a sense. Although, ironically, given what I've told you in private...
Oh my god, now you've just given it away. But no, I guess, sometimes
oh god, I spoiled. I hinted at that when I talked about the stuff that was happening in the background with the discussion. Well, I'm not going to spoil it outright, but you get the point. Anyway, all right, so I've got a talking point as well, and for this, I just need to quickly leave my desk.
Okay, I just will. As you leave your desk, I'll just say Thorfinn freeing himself. I think sometimes we're not interested. Not only are people maybe not able to do it by themselves, but I just don't even think he was interested in it. I don't think he would have tried to, because he'd been given chances to start to try to move on and decouple his life from Askeladd's life, but he just was not interested.
Yeah, I like to say I think that death cult for me sticks very true. And indeed, even if you don't go that far, I still think there are plenty of examples of people who have lived in abusive relationships, say just being married. You get beaten by your husband however many days a week for years, and you don't know any different. How on earth do you have a frame of reference to work outside of that to realize, hey, this isn't right, I shouldn't be allowing this to happen? The idea of something being normal, folks, normal is a relative term.
Yeah.
If you live in such an awful circumstance for your entire life, that is your normal. Normal, as we understand it, is just a consensus, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, and I've talked to you before about having an addict in my family, and this person, trying to help them is the most fruitless thing in the world, because they're just not interested in being helped at this point. There has to be some kind of circumstance, something that they have to hit some kind of brick wall at some point, and hope that it doesn't kill them. You know what I mean? That because everything else has been tried and has failed, and they still are not going to rehab, missing court dates, going back to old people and all that. They do not have the internal machinery to make that change on their own, and they don't care to develop it.
Well, what's just hit me like a ton of bricks, actually, now that I've just realized it. This kind of thing that's been happening with Thorfinn, I've seen this elsewhere, would you believe, in another anime that I've been watching fairly recently that I am incredibly enamored with and think is quite possibly the best work of art I've seen in anime. I'm talking Moraro Penguin Drum. It's the same thing.
Ooh.
Breaking out of cycles, fate, paternal, impressions, and father figures and all that. Having outside forces come in necessarily to shake you out of your funk.
I see a future audio essay.
You may very well see it indeed. That could be a thing. But yeah, who'd have thought, if you told me, it's a Viking epic, that we'd be looking something that would deal in abusive father-son relationships, mental illness, emotional trauma, all this kind of awful shit. And it just makes me like the show even more. Yeah. Holy crap.
And the really well done, Game of Thrones shit. Oh, so good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've talked before, about micromanipulation, and I previously kind of didn't really care for the macro level stuff of like all the political intrigue, right? Really, I'm more of a character drama kind of guy. But I can't deny that Makoto Yukimura's like focus on involving that was to make the point, as I say, that Swain, that Askeladd, and even Thorfinn and Canute and Thorkel, they're all creations of the period that they live in. You know, they're not just simply well, they are all people of unique circumstances, but with common threads among them. And so he's making the point in this work that, you know, while ultimately they do commit, like a lot of them do awful shit, they are in turn, you know, functions of the times, and the times themselves must change. And that's indeed why this act ends with Swain's death, and in turn Askeladd's death as well, with the somewhat muted, but at least it's still there, hope of Canute taking over and having a softer touch. Although, as I say, like, you know, him saying he wants to build paradise on Earth, that's the legend of you know, Babylon, and it don't end well for Babylon. Just saying. All right, my next talking point then, because you might know that I went to my library of sorts.
Oh yeah,
I have here Volume 5 of Vinland Saga. Now, why am I bringing Volume 5 up here? I'm not going to spoil anything for you folks, but you might recall I had a complaint at various points during the middle section of this show where I said that I really wasn't into the pacing of it. I thought, can we get a move on? Can we get to the character stuff? Blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah-de. So, without actually showing it to you on screen, because again, I don't want to spoil, I'm just going to quickly flick to the chapter section here to show how many like chapters there are in this volume. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That makes to me 8, 15. There are 15 chapters in this book. Now, bear in mind that, you know, if you think of it as equivalent, like, you know, there are 4 volumes that made up this anime. So 15, this being 1/4 of it, I would probably say constitutes 6 episodes or so. I read this in a day.
Oh, man.
I read this in a day because I was that engrossed by it. So here's the thing, right? I think that, you know, my complaints about this show's pacing, which I'm going to say are still valid in my opinion, but just for different reasons. I think that this is one of the unfortunate pitfalls you find when you're adapting a manga to an anime.
Yeah.
In that, you know, what we perceive like when we consume media is often how it's structured in terms of like, you know, chapters and bookmarks and segregation. I mean, that does have 15 chapters in it, don't get me wrong. But there's nothing stopping me once I purchase this volume going straight to the end. Like, think of it this way, right? There are 4 volumes that constitute this anime, right, in terms of the manga material, okay? That's 4 separate, like, physical entities, if you will, 4 separate, like, works that you would read. Whereas the anime is 24 episodes. Like, that's a lot more individual chunks. And when you're getting them week on week, rather than having, like, you know, this concentrated burst, as you will, you'll perceive the material differently as a result. So I'm just saying that, you know, I think that it's worth noting that if I complain about the pacing of this show, I think that that is an unavoidable reality of its release schedule, and in turn, also its transition from manga to anime to begin with.
Totally the medium, yeah.
Yeah, which is a shame. And part of me then wonders if, you know, maybe as if adapting, you could in turn take more steps to try and build on that.
Yes.
But then, of course, you might then get away from the point the show is trying to make, because, like, all the slow pace, all the slow pace stuff. Like, I mean, that episode, for example, that I said is kind of optional, but isn't, where we get to see like the girl, you know, whose
that
family
one should not be touched.
I agree.
Yeah.
That to me felt like a pivotal moment of reorienting our viewpoints to show Thorfinn and Askeladd when they were, you know, banded together as pirates, like, you know, from the perspective of a regular civilian, and the fact that they were doing awful shit. They might, you know, Thorfinn might be our hero, but he's complicit in some heinous crap, you know.
Yeah.
He's doing crime, and he ain't doing time for it either.
Yeah.
Just saying. So I'm bringing it up because I think that it's just key to note whenever you want to criticize a work, just that if it is adapted from a manga, give some consideration and some, maybe a little bit of lenience to pacing if you're bothered by it, because it doesn't quite work the same way. I mean, like I say, I went through this in an afternoon, but if this was 6 episodes, I'd have to wait 6 weeks to devour this.
Yeah, like you said, it's like definitely one of those things that it's good to have an understanding of it, right? That like a medium of a comic book is, the pace is almost entirely up to you, the reader. Whereas it's not the case in the show. So that is a thing built into that adaptation process. But at the same time, like you also said, it is the responsibility of the adapter, and I guess the author, right? The author has to agree, like, yeah, you can adapt my work this way, or no, it needs to be totally slavish to my original vision and do
depends
everything
on
the
how
same, you know.
I'm sure it depends on a production basis. Like I imagine people adapting are given, and indeed how much authorial involvement there can be. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey. I know I'm bringing that up of all things, but that was notorious for, you know, the author E.L. James having like near veto control over so many things because she threw a massive hissy fit at every change they made, despite the fact that that book is a giant garbage fire and all the changes made to it, you know, were necessary to try and make it better. That's a discussion for a different time. Go watch Dan Olson's video on it. It's fascinating.
It is. It's really interesting. What is it? A lukewarm defense of 50 Shades of Grey?
Yeah.
Oh, what a guy.
It's true. It's
Holding
true.
ideas.
It's true.
It's a good YouTube channel.
It is indeed. So yeah. I have one final thing to mention here. I think that the final moment of the show where like Thorfinn drops the dagger, like I love that. I think it's such a great moment to represent like how that's the end of his life as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, without spoiling, like, you know, I'm gonna read for all the volumes that come after this now. Like, I really want to see what happens next. And at the same time, I'm okay with it ending there rather than it ending like, you know, at the point it does in the manga necessarily, because I think that, you know, I think it's them hedging their bets a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there isn't going to be a season 2, I think that that's still a fine point to end on. We don't know his ultimate fate, but we aren't left necessarily with an open ending, such like where, oh, we know what happens next to him, or like where he unspin his life. We just know that this is the stage in his life that's ended, and what follows could be anything really.
Mm-hmm.
So just a small point, but I think that moment was great. I don't know necessarily how I feel about the insert shots of the future characters coming, because again, that's more cock teasing than anything.
Well, it could be like, I mean, again, if Yukimura was involved heavily, like, I, as much as I was teasing about it earlier, being like, it's a people we have no idea about, it is sort of a reminder maybe to people like, hey, there's more to this, and you can go buy it at your local bookshop. So maybe it's just that kind of thing, and I guess that's fair. Although, like, again, it's all so complicated for me because those things annoy me, but like it's necessary in this case because I think the season 2 of this is pretty pretty in doubt, right? I mean, it's, you know, the Magic 8 Ball will say not likely if I'm not mistaken.
I'll look not so good, basically.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, I've said everything I want to say about these 2 specific episodes. Do you have anything else you want to add in?
Let's get to the patron questions, buddy.
Oh, we do indeed. Right. So we have 2 questions here. Let's see. I'm just finding them. The first of which comes from Blinkaji. Shouts to you, Blink. Could you guys talk about Thorkell's opinions on Askeladd's rampage and Thorfinn's response to his death? So
we talked a little bit about this, but
Thorkell's opinions on Askeladd's rampage, like I think at this point, like as I say, Thorkell, I think is someone people would take too lightly in terms of his intelligence. Like, no one's like underestimating him in terms of physics. Like, you know, probably bench press like, you know, at least 3 cows simultaneously. But I mean, in terms of his opinion on the rampage, like he is very savvy and recognizes all of the political drama unfolding in for what it is. In terms of, you know, like he could put down Askeladd immediately, but he knows full well like he wants to, you know, support Canute, put him on there. So put him on the throne and also like make sure that he has the legitimacy of being a king. Because being a king in Viking times was about projections of strength, you know, which also, funnily enough, is why Sweyn was well past his prime, because he looks like he was moldy bread at this point. So I think that for me, like his opinions, like in terms of like how I view, I think that he's got a very good finger on the pulse of what's going on. I think that people take it too lightly in terms of his intelligence, like, you know, that he's only there to, like, you know, as I say, beer, booze, and bloodshed, the triple B, as it were. As for Thorfinn's response to Askeladd's death, I think we've talked about that.
Yep.
Only thing I would add is that I think that his reaction, like, I mean, obviously I've never been in a similar circumstance he has, but all of the behavior that follows, like the dead eyes, like the guttural scream and all that, like, I can like read that so many different ways. Like you could see it as grief in terms of like losing a father or a father figure. You could see it, for example, as sorry, like anguish at like that thing being taken away from these. The whole idea of like it being an analogy of like having a scab rips off a wound, and now it's just pure pain. But all of the behavior that I see here, like I can see being completely natural. Like there's a risk that you run when you get to like moments like that where your reaction is so hammy, like no.
The Resident Evil 1 FMV intro. Yeah. Don't go.
No, like, but no, it was earned by what builds to it, and in turn, I think felt like a very, I want to say natural, and I don't mean that in a positive way, like, because of course, it's an awful moment for him as a person, but it feels to me like that kind of response one would have to such prolonged trauma, like, and then that moment where, like, say the plasters rips off, so to speak.
It was incredible writing long term and acting in the moment. It was so earned, and it was so well done. And like Theowulf just said, Thorfinn didn't cry because he's a husk of a human being at this point who, I mean, it's the response to the death we've really talked about a lot, and it was really masterful, and totally a great moment in anime, I think, and I guess manga too, since this is a manga thing. Could you guys talk about Thorkel's opinions on Askeladd's rampage? Did Thorkel have opinions about it, or Canute was the one that was
talk about being a wild dog and how Canute?
Yeah, Canute was definitely the one who sort of saw through the mirage, and it like we said, it was really smart of him, and he has backed Canute, and he helped him hugely in that moment when he said, "You need to put him down because he's yours." That was a huge thing. I think that will end up, that moment will be the thing if conspiracy charges are never leveled at Canute. That'll be the thing that seals the deal, and it's Thorkel that made that happen.
Okay, final question here is, this is from Feowulf. Was Canute faking his kingly persona?
What does this mean? Theowulf is in chat. Could you please elaborate on this?
Well, if I may speculate, I think the intent behind this is that, Canute had to step up and start asserting authority. Once he took the crown on his head, and indeed on the run up to that as well, like, telling the guards what to do, tell him to not kill Thorfinn. I think that for me, with Canute here, I think it's something that he's always had the ability to do, but actually like slowly started to exert that ability to have that kind of like tough guy acts, as Feowulf puts in the chat. And I think this is the point where he truly has to embrace it. I mean, call it a faking thing if you will. I think you could argue that might be true. But I think that it's something that he in turn has always been very pretending to be something that he's not necessarily. What I would be curious about now is, like, if he is indeed faking a kingly persona just to make, sort things out in the moment, does that then in turn mean that he will become a proper king in time as Swain did, but also become like the same kind of king Swain was, which was to say a malicious, evil, twisted son of a bitch?
So I don't think he's been faking it. I think so when, like 6, 7, 8 episodes ago, whenever he made that turn of denouncing God and saying, "I'm going to make utopia on earth. I will take all the sin on my back, that all the bloodshed that's going to result in creating it. If God doesn't care about us, then I'm going to make heaven on earth. We're going to bring it down here." All that is real, and it was so real that it stopped Askeladd and Thorkel dead in their tracks when they could, Thorkel or whoever could have cut him down. They were like, "I see the real conviction in this kid's eyes. I'm going to be your vassal." and he turned it all around. And like, I think it's actually adds to the natural feeling of all this, that he's not just a complete badass making everyone wilt at every single moment. Like, of course he's going to be a little nervous up on that stage. I mean, he has conviction and he has charisma and he has his own little group of devoted followers, but he's also in a really precarious position. And so he's got to be cautious.
If I may add as well, let's also remember that there's a different opinion on King Sweyn himself, where he said that the crown had a kind of power. And indeed, when you put that thing on, like, did you and I not talk about the Stanford during this particular series?
The Stanford what?
Prison experiment.
Yes,
where people took up roles. Yeah. So I would argue that, at what point does faking it even matter necessarily? Like, head, he assumes the role and that becomes who he is. In the same way, that Sweyn said that the crown held power over him. So for me, I think that, it's something that he's always been capable of, but once the crown is indeed on his head, that's when he embraces. The question is, of course, whether or not we can get the whole power corrupts kind of thing happening with him.
Well,
because he has good intentions, but...
Sure. I think he has embraced it already because he killed Askeladd before he put on the crown. I mean, that act... he has to be fully committed to his course of action to kill Askeladd. You know what I mean? And again, totally totally a realistic depiction of a kid who has a firm belief about what he's doing, but he just killed the man for the first time. Of course he's going to be a little bit wobbly legged. I would be. God knows I'd be puking. Fucking hell. I mean, like, so yeah, I think that turn he made was real, and it's always he's never kind of wavered. He's been about that, but he is still just a kid in this game of very powerful people. And now that he does have the crown, he really is going to have to stuff down any kind of hesitation and fear that he might have in these different moments.
Well, if I may, I may not be a patient. Your question, Doctor. Did Canute in the end kill Askeladd for the reasons that Forkel suggested of, that logistic, avenging his father, making him seem like the big swinging dick of the room, that he was the one who was able to do it when no other one could, to show him as a man of action? Or did he kill Askeladd as revenge for killing Ragnar?
Oh, wow. I wonder if that was going through his head. I
mean, there is no hint of that is presented.
Yeah.
Totally believe. And indeed, I'm again not spoiling here. I could see that being something that is expanded upon in later volumes if we see Canute again. Why did I end up killing that man? Well, I believe it's because I wanted to kill him to, establish my, domain, my power, but I also did it because I wanted revenge.
I would not be shocked if it was, as Blue Sea says, like, I think if you did it in a pie chart...
Why not both?
If you did it in a pie chart, I bet it would be, like, mostly for the political reasons, but I bet when he gets right up to the line of going from a thought and potential to action, subconsciously, I bet that pushed him over the line.
Well, you can imagine him, like, stabbing the sword in. And so as he's there, like, he's standing right, I'm doing this for politics, I'm doing this for politics, I'm doing this for politics, I'm doing it because you killed Ragnar, you dick. Like, right at the end. That's the thing that would push him over the line.
Yeah. Yeah, he made the throw. I could see it being that way. That's an interesting pull, my friend.
Oh, boy. I mean, again, that's something that could be expanded on. Certainly open for our speculation. All right, then. That brings us to the end of our Patreon. Thank you, Wolf, and everyone else who's actually contributed questions to this entire series. It's brought us some amazing discussions, so thank you all so much for doing so. If you yourself listening at home would like to contribute to Warui Deshou financially and get on, in on this wonderful poll or question asking, action, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Warui Deshou. Get yourself on the $3 tier at minimum. You can ask us questions, get yourself early access to episodes, including our second stream, Patreon exclusive stream, where we're covering Jewel of Riches at the moment. You can even, ask us, say, for example, to cover a particular anime if you go onto the $5 tier. All that sort of good stuff is out there waiting for you. Check out the benefits on our page there. Before we rate these episodes, Doc, I suppose you and I should round out with our discussion of the series as a whole. And what
I was going to say, how do we want to do this? Because we got polls, we've got episode ratings, and we've got overall series thoughts. What order do we do those in?
I'll tell you what. Polls, ratings, overall series. I think that makes sense to me. Let's end on the note of talking. I'll let you go polls.
All right, could you restart the call while I reload the polls?
On it.
Thank you, sir. Doo-ba-dee-dee, we're still here. I gotta get us both off screen. Okay, there we are. All right. Ahem. The polls. Here we go. You can vote at Warui Deshou. These will be up for a week. There won't be another Vinland stream for us to read these on, and we've got Eizouken polls going already. So are we gonna read these results just on the next Eizouken? Since this is stream of thought.
Why not?
Okay.
I'm sure we did. Sure we did the same for Banana Fish and the like when we've covered them previously.
Yeah. It just I don't think it was an episode 3 of the next thing, but this is this is how it goes. All right. Finale poll number 1. Here's the early returns. Is Askeladd's reaction face to the whale's invasion plan the greatest face in anime history?
It's going to be an emote in our Discord. I know that much.
It has to be. No question is winning with 90% of the vote.
That'll do.
Poll 2. Askeladd, King Insulter, the Decapitator. Real one or scrub? It's a 75-25 split for real one. Askeladd is a real one, so STFU, 25% of you. Poll number 3. Something got in the way. Thorfinn's scream / guttural noise at the end. Best of its kind in voice acting, yes or no? It's so far early days, but 100% yes. Vote at Warui Deshou on Twitter. You've got a week to do your voting, and we'll read the results, the final results, at Eizouken episode 3 talk time.
If I may just intervene, by the way, Docs, I was actually going to put my own answers on the poll. I noticed we've hit a wonderful little milestone. We've just hit 500 followers on Twitter.
Yay for us. Congratulations. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much for contributing.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah, I know our 499th follow was an account that was about martial arts.
I'm okay with that.
Eyebrow raise.
I gotta learn how to punch a motherfucker someday, so I'm okay with that. Anyway, so yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. Both be on Twitter, or on YouTube, Twitch, wherever you may find us. As we've covered Vinland Saga, it's always appreciated to have your thoughts, your jokes, your opinions. It's been wonderfully. It's just been great. It's such a great vibe having all the people we've had talk with us as we've gone along for this series. And indeed, I hope you all continue to come back to join us for Eizouken and all of the other shows that we'll be covering in the future. But of course, we're not done with this particular stream yet, because we still need to rate the episodes and then, of course, talk about our overall thoughts. So, Doc, do you want to go first with rating episodes 23 and 24, or do you want me to go?
I'll go first, but I need to ask you, who are you? How tall are you? We've been asked in chat.
I'm just shy of 6 foot.
Me too. So I'm 5'10". Are you 5'11"?
Okay. I'm 5'11". So
okay. Basically neck and neck. Yeah.
No. Compared to me, you are but a tiny babby man.
Yes, a single inch.
Get fucked, Shorty.
Do you still do the inches and feet? Does it weird? Don't you measure height different? Don't you say I think 3 kilos tall or whatever?
Freaky. Look, right. I know that the metric system is the superior method, but England, as you might not have noticed over the past couple of years, is a backwards, divided, insane little, split brain country. So, I'm afraid. So I'm afraid to say that there are a lot of things we still use the imperial system for, such as, for example, speedometers, measurements of distance on motorways or highways, as you yank proletarians call it. So yeah, height is one of them.
You's about 4 stone away from me, love. Oi. 10 nautical miles. Gov. I'm sorry. Let me write the episode. Episode.
Please. How many nautical miles does this episode get?
Episode 23. I am gonna give. Oh boy. I can't remember how I've what the context is for my ratings, but just of these two, I'm gonna say that 23 is 4.75 kaiji internal states out of 5, and
incredible.
Episode 24 is 5 whole sort of chilling guttural screams of desperation out of 5. Yeah.
Nice. All right, for me, for episode 23, that was, to me, was setting up the chessboard for the final episode, and it did such a great job of that. Bits of it I could take a leave, for example, the whole lead up necessarily to Thorfinn getting put in jail, and for example, and all that. But all in all, I'm going to give that one 4.5. How do I put this? 4.5 birds that got away, and then for the final one, I'm not going to give it the whole 5. I'm afraid. I know you're going to think I'm a moron for that, but I think that in part is because, again, I wish the ending had necessarily didn't have the teasers of the characters, for example. A lot of it was super strong.
Yeah.
But I feel like that time could have been used more effectively to round out the show, not least of which by showing us actually what happened to Thorfinn. You could have totally done that in 10 seconds.
I guess. That's a fair criticism of the last few shots. I guess my full 5 is all about my enjoyment, and I really do think what they get right is really, really difficult to do and takes a lot of commitment to a vision and direction,
I agree. So in the end, it's going to be 4.75 out of 5. Thorkel ruins another all-you-can-eat buffet. Because that's what he's wanted to do. All right, so let's round out our talk on the show as a whole. I'm going to go first on this one.
Yep.
I'm going to be honest with you all here. In the list of anime that I saw in 2019, Vinland is not in my top 3. My top 3 is as follows, starting from top to bottom, basically. Beastars, Sarazanmai, Mob Psycho 200.
Oh, I thought you were okay. When you said that you saw, I thought you were going to go all the stuff that you watched. I thought you were going to be Penguin Drum.
No.
Okay. So what? So it's Beastars, Sarazanmai, and Mob Psycho.
Yes.
Okay. In that order?
Yeah. In that order.
Okay.
You look like you're really restraining yourself from protesting there.
Not really. I mean, just because I didn't watch Beastars, and I'm trying to think of the other stuff. It's real fucking hard. I mean, I think I would put Vinland ahead of Given. And I think I would put it ahead of The Promised Neverland.
I actually would agree with you there. Because the point I was going to make next was I would call Vinland my 4th favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I think I'm with you. I can't. Mob is number 1. But I think the Vinland Sarazanmai is a real thing in my brain, and it's difficult because recency bias is so heavy for Vinland. I'd have to really think about it. But I think it's in my top 3. But I didn't watch Beastars, unfortunately for me.
Thanks, Netflix.
Yeah,
douchebags.
We still need to I just need to sail the high seas, and me and you and James need to do a show on it.
We do. I've got so many things to say about it. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So, for all that I'm saying that, though, why am I talking about ratings and rankings, really? Why even bother with that? Because let's be honest, putting a number or ranking things it can be fun in its own right. It can, this is why you have Funimation and Crunchyroll doing their, Anime of the Year polls. Because it's fun, it gets people talking. Well,
the Anime Awards. Woo!
Oh, man.
Best girl, Thorkel.
I really really can't wait for Raftalia to win Best Girl. That's going to be a fucking like flashpoint moment.
Does she have to make a speech? Does the anime character then have to?
No, no,
What
now
would she
Fumi would
say?
make a speech.
Oh,
Now
yes,
Fumi
he
would
would
make the
do it
speech
for. Actually, on behalf of my slave, I'm going to make this speech.
I'm actually awesome.
Thank you. I made her everything that she is. She owes everything
Yeah.
to me. So I appreciate this vote. It's a vote for me. Get fucked. See you later.
Wow, that was a very authentic now Fumi. Well done, lad. Anyway, but here's the thing, right? Vinland Saga for me, like I really, really appreciate, even if it isn't necessarily like even in the top three, for a number of reasons that I don't think can be understated enough. The first thing I want to point out is that like this is an anime, don't get me wrong, but like in the terms of like how we view the stereotypes of what anime is, like we often think of like magical girls, mecha, and all that shit. But this is just straight up drama set in Viking period. And yet it works. And there are still parts of it that I don't think you could really do in live action. I mean, Thorkel, for example. Thorkel is like anime in of himself. But I think that Vinland Saga's existence and how well it's been executed overall is a testament to the strength of anime as a medium, that it allows it to be so flexible as to be what is otherwise a no sorcery, all that kind of thing, production of just Viking drama. No lie, I've been playing Witcher 3 recently. This show is punching in the same weight category as The Witcher 3 in terms of its quality of writing, in my opinion.
Wow.
That's how high this is punching. And
It's
on
high
top
praise.
of that, it is very high praise, don't get me wrong. And on top of that, like, I am impressed on how, like, my original impression, as I say, was that this was going to be a Viking epic as retold by a Japanese mangaka, or rather a new Viking epic told by a Japanese mangaka, which would be like, big battles, broad, everyone's going to swing swords, it's going to be bloody and awesome and all that, it's going to be crazy. But in the same way that people often misappropriate Berserk as an action show, which is, by the way, why I also don't think the Black Swordsman stuff is anywhere near as good as the Golden Age, but that's a discussion for a different day.
Manga-wise or anime-wise?
Anime-wise, but I will talk about that some other time. For me, like, getting into all of the ideas that it has about cyclic conflicts, wars corrupting, influence on nature and people, the idea of father figures and what our fathers leave behind, and how our fathers are not necessarily always right in what they say, even when they're as well-intentioned as Thor's is. And then leading all the way to seeing like the mental and emotional destruction of the lead character, with a little bit of a promise of, his rebirth into something different and better. There's so much heavy stuff in here. My complaints really, again, only kind of start and end with the way that the show is structured. I do still think it was a mistake for them to adapt the earlier episodes in the order they did, where they had the episode where we see Askeladd on the boat, be the later on. Because I think Yukimura's intent, as I say, was to have him start as awesome and then have him be built, dragged down over time, when we realize truly who he is as a person. Whereas in reverse, it works to do the opposite effects by making us think he's more awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But that overall doesn't take away from how compelling a villain Askeladd is and how he fits the bill perfectly of what I want to see from villains, which is, I disagree with him vehemently, but I can trace the through line with everything that we're presented from where he started to where he is now, and I could totally understand how he got there. And indeed, that's the point of Vinland, that should have never been allowed to happen to him or to Thorfinn. It's making a big stab against the existential nature of living in a time of perpetual warfare and cruelty, like that. That's the true villain of the show. So yeah, for all that I don't think this was my top 3 of last year, it still rates highly, and it's ambitious in its own right as well. And I am truly and utterly impressed by it. I'm impressed by Yukimura's maturity in the level of his writing, the empathy with which he treats his characters. And if you want any more of a ringing endorsement from me, this is where I'll end off now so Doc can say his piece. Check out my shelves behind here, right? I've got a number of books here of various sorts, right? I have sci-fi novels, I have graphic novels, I have Stephen Hawking's Brief History of Time, blah 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 blah. I only have 2 manga series on there. One of them, On this side over here, behind my head, is Land of the Lustrous.
Lol.
And the other, as you are no doubt aware, is Vinland Saga. If this show was that good that it made me want to pick the manga up and continue reading it, what more do I need to say than that?
Yeah. Okay.
Boom!
Boom! Mic dropping. All right, I have a lot to say. But let me get the Witcher stuff out of the way because I didn't want to interrupt you. I would have felt bad. But Yuki's right that The Witcher would make a great anime. And if you would like to hear Witcher discussed by an anime podcast, not the Witcher video game, but the Witcher Netflix television show, Danny and Kay are doing an episode on it.
Oh, yes, yes. And, Danny and Kay of Anime
is Lit. Mm-hmm. Get in. Get on over there to listen to them talk about the homoerotic swordplay of oh goddamn it, Henry Cavill and friends in The Witcher. And
toss a coin stem if you would while you're at it.
I was thinking when you brought that up, who would you want to see from Vinland Saga do the bath scene at the beginning of The Witcher 3? Thorkel? I think so. Yeah, I think he's got to be the one.
Either him or Bjorn.
Mm-hmm. I mean, personally, Canute, you'd want to dive right into that hot tub, but it will be really funny to see Thorkel. Honestly,
because I know full well, like I've seen that scene in the game, and of course Geralt's just there chilling out. He's soaking in. You know full well that Thorkel will be eating a chicken wing while he's doing it.
He would have to be. It would be like he'd have a horn of mead, the whole nine,
or a whole barrel. Hell,
yep.
maybe he's bathing in booze. Who knows?
He's boiling in it. Yeah, it's part of my blood now. Okay, but Vinland. So I have a deep love of anime. Oh, Bjorn being in there would be pretty good.
It's unbeyondable.
We haven't talked much about old Bjorn, but he was a great part of the show. He will be missed. So I really have a soft spot for anime that have no business being in the medium of animation. Like, I don't know, baseball shows. One of my favorite anime, if not my favorite anime of all time. It goes back and forth depending on how I'm feeling. Cross Game is just a show about high school baseball and grief, loss, personal trauma, and relationships. There's no reason it needs to be a cartoon, but it was animated, and it's great. There's no reason Vinland needs to be animated. It could exist, as you say, and a live action sort of thing, and maybe like have credibility or whatever. But it exists as a comic and it existed as an anime, and I love that about it. I think thematically, I mean, it's just there's so much going on from a character point of view and feeling like a grand sweeping thing, from eliciting pathos from us, the reader, the viewer. It succeeds wildly. I've already talked about how I think the build is masterful, and I think the reason, I just think, so let me back up and talk about the breaking from the cycle part that we have kind of, even in the beginning, like we didn't fully get there. We never said the word cycle, but we talked a lot about freedom. We talked a lot about, finding your own way. And that is why the cycles are brought up, is we're supposed to be like, oh, damn, like these cycles of war, of history repeating, of bloodshed are terrible. Like, how do we break this? How do we get out of them? And I think it's the sort of thing that can make the show appeal to everyone, not just because we live in the age of the forever war. It doesn't have to be anything that literal, but I think even just any kind of sensitive thinking person thinking about like the human condition, right? And what does it mean to be alive? Like, what is that like for us as experiencers? Oh, we're kind of in a lot of ways beholden to a lot that's not really in our control. and how do we really exercise free choice? Like, how do we become self-directed? Like, is that possible? And that this show in its own way is getting at that is pretty awesome. And so far in the prologue, we don't really have an answer, but it is the prologue. So that's fine. But I think this prologue shows us, like, Makoto Yukimura is, like, he's not playing. He's dealing with incredibly deep and universal kinds of experiences and themes. And I love it for that. And, you know, I believe it was Theowolf who talked about the ending being strong, propelling the Vinland anime in his rankings. And, I mean, I have to agree, like, as a person who's been a longtime viewer, anime perpetually suffers from starting strong and finishing weakly.
Sticking the landing.
It's
how
really
many
hard.
shows? Yeah, how many shows have you and I covered or talked about where they've made the Erased or Vial of Evergarden mistake of concluding, like, on such a high note 3 episodes before the end? Or just stacking even.
Yep. And there's plenty of mediocre shows that have an idea that has legs for 3 episodes, but then what do you do after that? And they just kind of fuck around for like 8 or 9 episodes, and that's it. But, like, this show started incredibly strong and built and built and built and had one of the most memorable endings I've seen in a while. I mean, up there with Banana Fish, up there with anything I've seen of recent vintage. And for that reason, I think, and this is I think 2019 is a really stacked year, actually, for anime.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
any other year.
The fact that it's not my anime of the year, like, I mean, Mob is like a favorite of everything in the decade. So the fact that it's sort of like behind that and in contention for the spot behind that, for me, might belie the fact that I think this is actually one of the best anime of the decade. I think you could put it in the top 10 anime of the decade. That's how strongly I feel about it, and how, just as a representative of what anime can be, like you said, that it doesn't have to be Magical Girl Mecha, it doesn't have to be moe, it doesn't have to be anything. It can be that, and it can be that really awesomely, but it can be like things that are totally different, right? As a medium, not a genre, it is capable of doing anything. And Vinland, as a representative of that, I think that would be a reason, just like any other reason, as good as any other reason, as good as any other merit that it has to put it on a top 10 anime of the decade list. But unfortunately, because you have talked about this, you have mentioned, I have no problem with moe, Yuki. This is what I'm saying, is like, anime can be that, and it's great that it can be, and that can be really well done, and that is a good thing and totally valid. My point is, like, the anime is like that a lot, and I think that there could be stereotypes of this is what anime is, but like Vinland is just so different, right? But sweet Jesus, like, people are not going to be able to watch this show. This show being on Amazon is like, I mean, I can't think of another show. Maybe Cabanera the Iron Fortress was able to, being the first ever Amazon like licensed anime simulcast, also being the Attack on Titan person, also getting the movie on Netflix, and like being released on like Blu-ray by Crunchyroll. It had a lot of other things going for it. This is not going to have that, and I'm so worried that what I believe is one of the best anime of the decade will not be seen by as many people as it should be because of where it landed licensing wise. And this is, I feel bad. Like, I mean, would I rather it be on Amazon than nowhere? Yes. I would rather it make the money of
being licensed by Harmony Gold.
Yep. Or being fan subbed by, GG or whatever. But like,
Well, if I may just add something on to that, Dan, like this is something that I'll not spoil what this is for, but something I've been writing about recently is we're now approaching the point where, hey, streaming services, that's good. But we're only really becoming cognizant now of the ways in which streaming services operate with releasing their content and how that can actually be quite bad for the content's longevity as a fan product, and also just even from a business perspective. I mean, I mentioned before about the idea of like Vinland Saga, like having a slow pace, and how I read the book in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is going to sound massively hypocritical of me, and I apologize profusely for saying this, but I feel it's still to be true. If it were the case that Vinland Saga, all 24 episodes, were ready to go, I wouldn't release them all in one go. I wouldn't. I'd do it week on week. Because it would exist in the mind's eye of like fandom for a week and then vanish. We're blessed with riches, so to speak, at the point now we're at with streaming services and all the content that's coming out. But the release schedule is playing such a key part in fandom discourse and the like.
Yeah.
And that's also why...
Which I'm not altogether happy with, by the way, but no. it is what it is,
No, I mean, Beastars, for example, like, I won't lie, I sailed the high seas for that one because I pay Netflix, and if they don't want to give the content I want at the same time as the rest of the world, even though there is literally nothing stopping them from doing that, because it's their content, their license to what they want with it, then, well, I'll do as I please. But the annoying thing by doing that is that having now done so, I've had my fill of it, I've got my thoughts out there, other people will have their fill of it in March, but the people who've seen it and the people who haven't are now divided, and we're going to essentially have diluted community discourses about them. Two separate instances of the same discussion going on. Yeah. Vinland, I think, has been harmed, unfortunately, by being on Amazon in the same way that I would argue Banana Fish was. I mean, let me ask you this question, Doc. Mm-hmm. Like, you saw how explosively popular Given was when it came out on Crunchyroll. Mm-hmm. And we learned when we covered Given.
Well, it actually, so let me just elucidate your description. It became explosively popular. I think it gained momentum week on week. When it first came out, I don't think it was like doing this huge numbers, but like people discovered it over time. And by mid-season, it was huge.
Yeah, but indeed, Crunchyroll put time into promoting that, I would argue. Yes. I mean, they've got like the fly rolls at the top that show that. So let me ask this question. Do you think Banana Fish would have been like at least twice as popular had it come out on Crunchyroll first time around?
Boy, yeah, yes.
Do you think Vinland Saga would have been twice as popular?
Oh, hell yes. I think it would be even more popular. But like, oh God, but this is an issue because we're like, basically we're saying all other, you must come out on Crunchyroll to be popular. You can't do Amazon or Netflix. Because like the Netflix, like you said, if it all came out at once via the Netflix model, I mean, Evangelion's one of the greatest anime ever made.
Do you want to know how long that lasted for when that got released? Everyone was thinking,
a week.
This is going to be like the revivification of like Eva fandom, and no, it didn't happen.
It lasted
and
a
that's
week.
Just because, that's because it just went out all at once. I mean, Mandalorian came out on Disney Plus week on week, and people would losing it over that. So I feel a strong sense of shame, for like the way things are right now, in that how heavily it affects people's enjoyment of shows and such, that it really is like, we're blessed with too much great content and not enough of a headspace necessarily to, truly engage with it. Also because, it all gets released at once, or it doesn't get released quickly enough. Or it goes on a service that has no real interest in promoting the materials to begin with, Amazon.
I know. And it's already like, it's not like Crunchyroll or High Dive where you pay like, $4 to $6 a month. Like Amazon Prime is like, it's expensive.
I don't want to go to the bat for Amazon necessarily, but it is also like with features built in, so I can kind of understand it being a bit more expensive as a result. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because it's been an absolute pleasure to cover this week on week, and I hope that at least we've given some extra meat to the community discussion that's been going on around Vinland, even though it has languished in relative obscurity on Amazon versus where I'd like it to see, which is on Crunchyroll or another more popular service, not for the sake of it being on those specific, services, But as Feo said, like Crunchyroll's
I
done
know.
more on Amazon.
It's so funny because like of the anime awards and stuff.
Yeah, like I mean, and even then, like I was actually going to bring up the anime awards. I wouldn't necessarily use these as a barometer of fan engagement, so to speak. But the fact that Vinland Saga got so well like nominated, I mean, I think it was actually, to be fair, like nominations were like judge based rather than community based as opposed to Funimation.
Yeah,
but still, like it's obviously important to a lot of people. So just to round off what you're saying there, Dot, like it's something you and I will have to be cognizant of going in the aware of in the future. But I do hope to the powers that be somehow that this got enough of a buzz and enough attention via Amazon, its limited release on that platform, that we do get a season 2, and that we do get to see this story continue. I think it deserves it. I think that it's had such strength all the way through in terms of the quality of its writing. And the only places it's lagged have been, really due to structural issues that are partly avoidable and partly unavoidable. I would love to see it continue in animated form to deliver on the promise that those final moments gave us of those characters that we may otherwise never see again in animated format. I can hope.
I know. I hope so too. I hope so too.
But for what it's worth, I actually mentioned at some point in our podcast series about how I compared the Vinland Saga's look at damaged young men living their lives under these obsessions with things like 91 Days, the obsession with killing the rival mob boss guy, or in Banana Fish, the obsession of taking out Golzine. And having now finally finished the show, I can say it can stand proud amongst those shows as being as good, if not better.
Yeah.
And Banana Fish was fucking good.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that I think it was Theowolf in chat earlier mentioned releasing it in 3-episode chunks. And I have actually been wondering since visiting for the first time over Christmas the Space Battleship Yamato 2199 show that came out. I think in 2012 is when it started. But the way they released it, Shadon, was they made 4 episodes at a time, and they would show the 4 episodes as a movie at a theater. And then when you would leave the movie, there was a merch table where you could buy the Blu-ray of those 4 episodes and shirts or whatever. Sony and Funimation, you have a lot of Sony is a corporation with money. Maybe there are certain shows you could do that for. Maybe that will be successful. I don't know if in this who knows if it would be successful, or if there's a company that would want to do it, or if there's a property that they would feel will be worth taking that risk on. Maybe that it would have to be something new, because you couldn't be oh, that's what we're doing to My Hero Academia, because people would riot in the streets because they're so used to the weekly. They're used to the weekly release at this point. So
people would lose their fucking minds over that.
I know. So part of me wonders if that's a viable way to do it for maybe I don't know, for something. I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough. I don't know enough of the financials and logistics to even say whether or not this is realistic. I just know that this is a thing they did for Yamato, and I think they've done it for other things before. So it is a release model for anime that exists in Japan that has done well. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we both think this show's amazing, and
it's incredible. Yeah.
It's a shame. It's a shame to say goodbye to it, but at the same time, like I say, I am happy that there is more material out there that I can pursue via the manga, which I will be doing, and no doubt you will hear me talk about on Twitter.
I definitely am going to do it. I have to know. I have to know.
Well, especially after I drop that knowledge bomb on you. Sorry, mate. All right, then. I suppose we should. I'll just say it again. This now, if I'm not mistaken, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is our 6th full show that we've covered on Stream of Thought.
We're in the middle of number 7 as we speak.
Yeah, we're getting into number 7, Azakin. Azo 7 is. Sorry, I apologize. I had to. And it's been the format's changed a little bit over time. We've had new additions. We've gone from originally doing it as kind of a podcast, always doing this live stream thing, all sorts of crazy stuff. But I just want to say again, to everyone who's followed us from all the way through from MMO Junkie to Frank's of all things, to Banana Fish, then on to Promised Neverland, and then on to Sarah's and Mai, and then finally to here. Thank you all so much for joining us on this, ongoing series that we've been doing and all the shows that we've covered. We've had quite a medley of stuff, and I'm glad that, people have been wanting to hear us talk about this stuff, and it's brought more people, to our audience who come back week on week. It is always lovely to see you all join us and offer your thoughts and your jokes and your opinions. It really makes it worthwhile doing this week on week. Thank you, honestly. I hope that, if you've been here for Vinland, you would stick around for Eizouken. It is a great show in its own right, but I'd very much love to have you join our discussion nonetheless on it. We'll be going into future shows as we go along this year, of course. There are already contenders for what we might cover, being announced at the moment, For Your Eternity. I think that you and I are going to have a very serious discussion about covering that when it comes out.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, we'll find out. We will find out potentially. But for now, folks, until we come back for Eizouken next week, if you want to help support us financially, you're more than welcome to check out our Patreon, as I mentioned before, patreon.com/Warui Deshou. Check out our benefits. I would greatly appreciate the support that our patrons have offered us throughout. Thank you so much for, contributing your money, your opinions, your everything that you've given us to help us become a better podcast. It can't be said enough how much that means to me, that people would even pay a single dollar to listen to, or at least me speak, if nothing else. So thank you for that. If you in turn don't support us financially, I'm not going to tell you to piss off, not even as a jest. What I will tell you is this. For what really kind of started as a small scale thing, just to give me some opportunity to talk to someone, about anime that I didn't really have the opportunity to do so in real life because I've got too many normie friends, curse them. To have it grow into even, small scale as it is, this little thing we've got going now, it means the world to me.
Yeah.
And I appreciate every single one of you who's helped to, come along, just to watch, not even necessarily to say anything. So thank you for being a part of this, all of you. It really, really means the world to me. But we're not done. Nope. Eizouken free next week, motherfuckers.
That's right. And
money and violence.
Money and violence. And also stay tuned later today for After Hours. If you are
if you're a patron of ours, we'll be doing that.
Yeah, you'll get an after show about some other non-Vinland related topics.
Indeed.
And I'm going to have to seriously think about this Blue Sea X Mirror Coalition idea here that we do podcast on the manga. Because we both are going to read it. You are reading it. I am going to obtain it.
Oh man,
my birthday is coming up, so I need to ask for mangas.
Man, I'll read it out. The final thing I'll say, of course, is if you're catching this, on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Anchor, wherever you may be getting it, if you could just take 2 minutes just to leave us a rating and a review or a like, comment, a subscription, clicking the bell, pushing all the buttons, because that's what we as, computer users are trained to do. I would appreciate that just to help with our discoverability. It would be really nice. And we're always open for constructive feedback as well. If you want to leave it on our Twitter at Warui Deshou, if you want to send it to us at waruideshou@gmail.com, all constructive feedback is welcome. We only want to do a better job of doing this podcast, so please do send that in. Doc, before we go, where can people find you specifically on Twitter to question your taste? Not that you should do that.
At Vorgalia on Twitter. No.
Well played.
I am at The Subtle Doctor on Twitter. Please feel free to chat about anime or manga or any other assorted nerderies. If there are any Japanese pro wrestling fans listening out there, please hit me up. I don't have anyone to talk to about that. But yeah, so please. I am available to be added.
Indeed. For me, I'm at Shadon1010 on Twitter. If you're a real ale enthusiast, or as you might be known in the United Kingdom, or Camera Gal even, hit me up. Talk to me about anything and everything. If it's related to alcohol, I'll probably have a good banter about it. Unless you drink Seltzer, in which case you're a fucking redneck. Go home and think about what you've done. Woo. All right. On that fine note, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs, thank you again so much for joining us. We're going to leave now to crack on with After Hours. But as we're always fond of saying on this podcast, because it's kind of our métier here, that's a French word for what we do. Embrace your everyone. It's the end of the universe. Good night.